Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling journey into the shadows of history. Tonight, we travel to one of the most haunted sites in America, a place soaked in blood, tragedy, and restless spirits, the Presidio La Bahía in Goliad, Texas. This 18th-century Spanish fortress has stood watch for centuries, surviving battles, betrayals, and massacres. Its stone walls have borne witness to unspeakable horrors, and it is said that the dead have never left. Soldiers, prisoners, priests, and innocent victims of war all are rumored to linger, their echoes drifting through the cold night air. Tonight, we will explore the 25 most terrifying hauntings of Presidio La Bahía. Each story will plunge us deeper into the dark heart of this fortress, where history and the supernatural intertwine. As you listen, imagine yourself walking those ancient stone corridors, the air heavy with the smell of candle wax and old gunpowder, hearing the faint cries of those who died long ago. Stay close, for the ghosts of Goliad are watching. The main courtyard of Presidio, LA, is calm during the day, a place where sunlight bathes centuries-old stones and tourists wander with quiet awe. Guides point out the history etched into every wall, explaining the fort's role in the battles that shaped Texas. Children skip across the flagstones, and the occasional bird sings from the tower above. By day, the courtyard seems almost mundane, a gentle reminder of history. But when the sun sinks below the horizon, and the last visitor departs, the true nature of the courtyard awakens. At night, the tranquility vanishes. The air becomes heavy, saturated with an almost tangible tension. Security guards and late-night historians have spoken of hearing the clash of swords echoing from empty spaces, the percussive thundering of musket fire bouncing off the stone walls. The sounds are vivid, sharp, distinct, and close enough to make the heart race. At first, most dismiss them as imagination, the wind playing tricks through the fortress's narrow passages. But those who remain long enough soon realize the sounds are no illusion. They have a rhythm, a structure, a pattern that echoes historical battles that took place within the very same stones centuries ago. Witnesses describe seeing shadows moving through the courtyard. At times, these figures are indistinct, almost mist-like, but at other moments, they take form. Men in worn uniforms, faces pale and etched with anguish. Some appear to march in formation, rifles resting against shoulders, while others seem disoriented, staggering as if wounded, replaying the chaos of the massacre that left the courtyard stained with blood. One security guard recalls a night when he counted more than a dozen shadowy figures, all moving silently, their eyes fixed on an invisible enemy. Their presence was oppressive, a weight pressing on his chest and making it hard to breathe. The most chilling accounts come from those who have experienced the courtyard in total darkness, when the only light comes from the thin moon above. At such times, some have reported feeling sudden gusts of icy wind brushing against them, carrying with it the scent of gunpowder and iron. Others have heard cries sharp, high-pitched, and guttural screaming from all directions. The sounds are disorienting, coming from behind, in front, and above, as if the dead are reenacting their final, frantic moments from every angle. One visitor, who dared to remain after dusk, recounted the sensation of phantom hands brushing against his shoulders as he tried to retreat toward the gate, though he was utterly alone. Locals speak of the courtyard as being cursed, a place where the souls of the massacred soldiers cannot find rest. During the Goliad massacre, hundreds of Texian prisoners were executed after surrendering, their bodies left to the elements before being buried hastily. Many were young men, barely trained, unprepared for the violence that awaited them. Their deaths were cruel, merciless, and sudden. Folklore says that their spirits linger, caught in a loop of confusion, rage, and despair, unable to cross into peace. Some paranormal investigators claim that the courtyard holds residual energy, a recording of historical trauma that plays over and over for anyone sensitive enough to perceive it. They set up audio recorders and infrared cameras, capturing faint murmurs, the echo of marching boots, and fleeting shapes that vanished before a closer inspection. On some nights, cameras capture shadow figures converging at the center of the courtyard, standing motionless for minutes before scattering, as if aware of the living observer. There are also stories of visitors witnessing ghostly duels. Two figures may face each other in the dim light, swords raised, only to vanish when approached. Their movements are precise, as if performing a ritual long repeated, a battle never won, a command never obeyed. Others have reported seeing bodies collapse to the ground in slow motion, only to rise again moments later, walking the courtyard endlessly. The atmosphere is thick with sorrow and anger. Some who linger too long describe a pressure on the chest, a deep, unshakable fear, as though the dead are aware of their presence and resent being watched. One historian who stayed late to catalog the courtyard described hearing footsteps approaching from every direction, then suddenly halting as he turned. The silence afterward was heavier than any sound, a suffocating void that made him flee. Despite the fear, there is a strange, almost magnetic pull. Visitors often feel compelled to return, drawn by curiosity or a sense of duty, as if acknowledging the soldiers' suffering keeps their stories alive. Some leave small tokens in the courtyard, coins, flowers, or simple offerings, gestures meant to honor the restless dead. Those who do speak of a lighter feeling afterward, a brief sense that the soldiers are acknowledged, if not fully at peace. The courtyard of Presidio La remains a space where history and the supernatural intersect. By day, it is a testament to Texas history, a stone witness to battles fought and lives lost. By night, it becomes a threshold between the living and the dead, where the restless soldiers of the courtyard replay their final moments in a never-ending cycle. Visitors who walk its stones after dark cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing down. A reminder that some histories never truly fade, and some souls never leave. Those who hear the clash of swords or glimpse a shadow moving across the moonlit courtyard often leave changed, carrying with them the memory of men who fell, yet refused to rest. And while the Presidio stands as a monument to courage and tragedy, the courtyard ensures that the soldiers remain, forever marching, forever vigilant, forever restless. The chapel of Presidio La stands as one of the most serene and beautiful spaces within the historic fortress. Its whitewashed walls glow softly in the sunlight, the wooden beams above supporting centuries of history. Candles flicker along the altar, their flames casting warm, dancing shadows that bring the room to life. Tourists often linger here, whispering in hushed tones, taking in the sense of peace that the chapel seems to radiate. But appearances can be deceiving. Beneath this beauty lies a weight of sorrow so heavy that it lingers long after the candles burn out and the chapel doors are closed. During the infamous Goliad massacre, the chapel became a place of both hope and despair. Priests and clergy rushed to offer the last rites to the condemned Texian soldiers who had surrendered and were awaiting execution. They moved quickly, their voices calling out prayers, their hands raised in blessing, attempting to provide comfort to those moments away from death. Yet the soldiers' fates were cruelly sealed, and many priests were unable to complete their sacred duties before the violence claimed all life in the fortress. Among those who died, or perhaps among those whose spirits refused to leave, was a priest known for his unwavering devotion. Legend holds that this priest remained within the chapel, unable to find peace. Witnesses describe him as a shadowy figure, dressed in flowing robes, kneeling eternally at the altar, his shoulders shaking as though weeping. The air grows inexplicably cold when he appears, and a sense of deep, almost unbearable sorrow fills the room. Some say the priest weeps not only for the soldiers who died, but also for the failure to protect them, burdened with a guilt that no earthly time could ever absolve. Visitors to the chapel often recount the first subtle signs of his presence. It begins with faint sounds, the soft murmur of Latin prayers carried on a breeze that cannot be explained. Candles flicker without reason, though no drafts exist. Shadows lengthen and twist along the walls, forming shapes that vanish when approached. For those who remain, the sensations escalate. A cold draft brushes their cheeks, heavier than any natural wind. A gentle sob can be heard in the quiet, echoing across the altar as if a soul were grieving in real time. Several paranormal investigators have spent nights in the chapel, hoping to capture evidence of the priest's lingering spirit. They describe feeling a profound pressure on their chests, as if the priest's sorrow is a weight pressing them to the floor. Some report whispers directly in their ears, the sound of prayers recited for centuries. Domine, miserere, Lord, have mercy, repeating over and over, growing louder until they cannot distinguish the room from the voices. Motion-activated cameras occasionally catch a faint figure kneeling at the altar, bowing slightly, or reaching out as though in blessing. But every time the cameras zoom or investigators approach, the figure vanishes as though swallowed by the stone walls. Local lore suggests that the weeping priest is drawn to those who carry heavy burdens themselves. Visitors with grief, guilt, or unresolved sorrow may sense his presence more keenly, as if their emotions resonate with the weight he carries. One overnight visitor described waking in the middle of the night to the sound of soft footsteps pacing the chapel floor. When he turned on his flashlight, the room appeared empty, but when he later reviewed the photos, a pale, indistinct figure was visible kneeling at the altar, shoulders hunched in anguish. The visitor left that night with a deep feeling of reverence and fear, convinced that he had witnessed the sorrow of a soul trapped between worlds. Even those who entered during the day may feel his presence, albeit in subtler ways. A quiet visitor might hear whispers as they read inscriptions on the walls. Candles may flicker for no reason, casting shadows that stretch unnaturally along the chapel's corners. Occasionally, the air will grow inexplicably cold near the altar, prompting a shiver that runs from head to toe. Some guidebooks caution visitors to respect the space, noting that many who ignore the chapel's history feel the weight of its sorrow immediately. Stories also tell of the priest's attempts to continue his duties beyond death. Some visitors claim to have seen the ghostly figure move among the pews, extending a hand as if to bless unseen worshippers. Others have reported feeling an almost tangible energy, as though a hand rested gently on their shoulder during a moment of prayer, guiding them in a gesture of spiritual comfort. The weeping priest is not thought to be malevolent. Rather, he is a guardian of souls and memories, carrying the weight of the massacre and attempting to offer solace where he once could not. The chapel's haunting is a reminder that some tragedies cannot be contained by time or walls. The priest remains as a testament to devotion, grief, and the weight of duty unfulfilled. For those who enter the chapel with an open heart and mind, his presence is both a warning and a comforter, reminder of the lives lost and the spiritual burdens carried forward. Some say that if you kneel quietly at the altar, close your eyes, and listen, you can hear him pray for all who enter. A sorrowful yet protective presence, lingering in the heart of Presidio. To this day, the weeping priest is never seen in full light, never heard in complete clarity, but his essence pervades the chapel. He is the echo of history, a lingering testament to faith, duty, and the unbearable weight of loss. And for anyone who has felt his sorrow, the memory is not easily shaken. It stays, lingering like the softest whisper of grief, a reminder that some souls never leave, and some prayers are never truly complete. Among the many tragic figures said to haunt Presidio, the few are as heart-wrenching as the phantom drummer boy in the chaos of war. Boys as young as 12 or 13 were often enlisted not to fight with rifles, but to serve as messengers, signalers, and keepers of rhythm. They carried drums that called out commands, signals, and morale, their small hands beating patterns that could guide entire battalions through smoke and confusion. One such boy, barely in his teens, met a violent end during the siege of the Presidio. His short life cut tragically short in the fog of battle. His body was found among the fallen soldiers, his drum shattered beside him, a mute witness to the carnage. Today, the story of the phantom drummer boy has become one of the most chilling legends of the fortress. Visitors often describe faint drumming sounds echoing across the stone courtyards late at night. Soft at first, then growing louder, until the heartbeat of the drum seems to fill the air. The rhythm is unmistakable, calculated, deliberate, almost military in precision, as though the boy continues to relay orders long after the soldiers he served have perished. The drumming is not a comforting sound. There is an urgency to it, a sense of lost purpose, as if the boy is desperately trying to keep the battle alive, to complete a duty he could not finish in life. Those who hear the drumming often speak of a growing unease. The sound seems to move with them, appearing louder when they pause, fading when they move, as though the boy's spirit is aware of their attention. On several occasions, late-night visitors have reported seeing a faint, childlike figure near the edges of the courtyard, clutching a broken drum. He is pale and almost transparent, yet his small body is remarkably solid in outline. Observers describe his eyes as dark and hollow, yet filled with the weight of sorrow and determination. He marches in place or along the courtyard, beating his drum, sometimes looking up as if checking for orders that will never come. The air around him is said to grow cold, sudden chills sweeping through the stone corridors. Some witnesses report a distinct metallic scent, a combination of sweat, blood, and gunpowder that hangs in the air, clinging to the senses. Others feel a pressure on their chests, as if the boy's grief and unresolved duty press upon them directly, demanding acknowledgement. Those who have followed the drumming too closely claim they became disoriented, their sense of direction warped, as though the boy as spirit manipulates the environment to keep them within earshot of his mournful cadence. Paranormal investigators have tried to document the presence of the phantom drummer boy. Audio recordings sometimes capture faint, rapid beats, uneven yet precise, echoing against the stone walls long after the human ear stops hearing them. Infrared cameras occasionally record a small figure moving along the flagstones, vanishing whenever someone attempts to approach. Some even claim that the boy's drumming has been heard in empty rooms, behind locked doors, as if he can pass through walls and barriers that no living person can. Locals tell a story of a tourist who stayed overnight in the fort. At first, she thought the drumming was her imagination, a trick of the wind, or the echo of the old fortress. But when she stepped outside onto the balcony, she saw him, a small figure, standing in the courtyard, his tiny hands moving over a broken drum, his form faintly glowing under the moonlight. She froze as the sound grew louder, the rhythm beating directly into her chest. Then, just as suddenly, he vanished, leaving the courtyard silent but for the echo of her own heartbeat. She would later say that the experience left her feeling both sorrowful and shaken, the boy's grief lingering long after his spectral form disappeared. The phantom drummer boy is more than just a ghostly presence. He is a reminder of the innocence lost in war. Unlike other spirits of Presidio, he is not tied to rage or vengeance, but to duty and tragedy. The boy's spirit continues to fulfill a role he could never complete in life, and those who encounter him often feel the weight of his mission. Some say that if one listens closely and respectfully, the drumming serves as a memorial, a heartbeat of the past echoing across the present. Others warn that curiosity and disrespect can draw the boy's attention, keeping visitors near his sorrowful rhythm far longer than they intended. There are accounts of visitors trying to interact with him. Some have left small offerings near the spot where he is most frequently seen. A coin, a note, or even a small drum. Witnesses claim that the drumming sometimes responds, changing tempo or growing louder, as if acknowledging the gesture. But these interactions are fleeting, a constant reminder that some lives, no matter how small, can leave an enduring mark on the world and the spirits that linger. The legend of the phantom drummer boy endures because it speaks to the tragedy of youth lost to conflict, to the countless faces erased by history's cruelty. Every beat of the drum is a call from the past, an echo of a life interrupted, and a warning to all who tread the old stone courtyards of Presidio. The history is never truly silent, and some echoes refuse to fade. Those who have heard his mournful rhythm often leave the fort with a heavy heart, carrying with them the memory of a small boy whose duty and sorrow has kept him marching long after death. The officer quarters at Presidio LA are among the most historically significant areas of the fortress. During the 18th and 19th centuries, these rooms were occupied by commanding officers, their families, and occasional visitors spaces of planning, strategy, and the occasional respite from the chaos outside. Today, tourists admire the period furniture, the carefully restored wooden beams, and the quiet elegance of the rooms. But as night falls, these quarters reveal a darker history, a layer of sorrow that has refused to fade with time. Among the most enduring legends of the fortress is that of the Lady in White. Visitors describe her as an elegant, ethereal figure, dressed in a flowing gown of pure white. Her presence is subtle at first, a shimmer along the wall, a flicker in the candlelight, but those who notice her are drawn into a haunting scene of mourning and loss. She glides silently across the floors, her movements deliberate yet graceful, almost as if she is dancing to a melody only she can hear. The sound of soft, inconsolable weeping often accompanies her, echoing through the corridors and filling the rooms with sorrow that seems too heavy for mortal comprehension. The story goes that the Lady in White was once the of an officer stationed at the Presidio. Their love was deep and genuine, a rare bright spot in a fortress often overshadowed by battle and bloodshed. When the Goliad massacre erupted, her lover was among those captured and executed. She watched helplessly as the man she loved was taken from her, unable to intervene, unable to protect him. Heartbroken and overwhelmed by grief, she is said to have wandered the quarters, refusing to leave even as the days and nights passed, her sorrow binding her spirit to the stone walls forever. Those who encounter her report a profound sense of loss and longing. The air grows inexplicably cold, and a soft wind seems to brush through the room, despite closed windows and locked doors. Candles flicker as if reacting to her presence, casting elongated shadows that stretch unnaturally across the walls. Visitors often describe the faint scent of lavender, a fragrance that seems impossibly sweet, yet tinged with sadness, lingering long after she has vanished. Some have heard her soft, trembling voice whispering a name repeatedly, the syllables of her beloved echoing in the quiet quarters. Others have felt an unseen hand brush their shoulder, a gesture so light it could be mistaken for a passing draft, but it carries with it the weight of centuries of longing. Paranormal investigators who have spent nights in the officers' quarters describe a thickening of the atmosphere, a palpable heaviness that presses down on them, making each breath feel laborious. Motion sensors and cameras sometimes capture a faint, flowing figure gliding through the rooms, disappearing whenever someone tries to approach, leaving only the soft trail of her presence behind. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a night when a caretaker was performing routine maintenance in the quarters. As he adjusted a candle near the corner of the room, he noticed a white shape moving across the far wall. Frozen in place, he watched as the Lady in White glided closer, her head bowed and shoulders quivering with silent weeping. When she reached the center of the room, she turned slightly, and he swore he saw eyes brimming with tears, sorrow so immense it seemed almost tangible. Then, without warning, she faded into the air, leaving the caretaker shaken, yet compelled to understand the story she carried. Some locals believe the Lady in White is more than a grieving spirit. They claim she appears to protect the memory of love and loss, a guardian of the emotional history that the fortress itself cannot speak. Those who treat her quarters with respect feel a certain calmness, a gentle acknowledgement of her sorrow. But those who mock or dismiss the legends often report strange occurrences, items misplaced, doors left ajar, or the sudden sensation of being watched. It is as if her presence is both a warning and a reminder, teaching respect for the past through subtle yet unnerving means. Tourists who witness her often leave with a lingering sense of melancholy, a quiet reflection on love interrupted by war, and the enduring power of grief. The Lady in White is said to wander the same corridors each night, seeking something she cannot reclaim, eternally mourning her lost lover. Her sorrow is a quiet echo of human emotion, preserved in the stone walls of the officers' quarters, a story that transcends time. Even today, some say that if one walks slowly through the quarters on a moonlit night, they may glimpse the flowing white gown, catch a faint whimper, or feel the brush of unseen hands. For those sensitive to the supernatural, the Lady in White is impossible to ignore a presence, both sorrowful and beautiful. tragic yet undeniably alive in the memories of the fortress. Her tale endures, not because of fear, but because of the depth of human emotion she represents: love, loss, and the lingering grief that refuses to fade with the passing years. The Lady in White remains a spectral sentinel of the officers' quarters, a reminder that history is not just events, but emotions frozen in time. She weeps, she wanders, and she mourns, keeping alive the memory of a love ended too soon. And as long as her presence persists, those who enter the quarters may find themselves touched by the profound sorrow of a heart that never truly left Presidio. Presidio La Bahia, now a serene historical site, was once a fortress, brimming with tension, gunpowder, and the chaos of battle. By day, visitors wander its stone walls and admire the view of the surrounding plains, imagining the past through guided tours and carefully preserved architecture. But as night falls and the last echoes of laughter fade, a different kind of history awakens, one that rattles the bones and quickens the heartbeat. Among the most unnerving phenomena reported is the so-called phantom cannon fire, a haunting echo of the fort's violent past that refuses to remain silent. Visitors and security personnel alike recount the experience with a mix of fear and awe. In the dead of night, when the Presidio is empty and quiet, the distant boom of cannons can be heard, rolling across the courtyard and echoing against the stone walls. The sound is deep and resonant, unmistakably that of black powder firing, yet no living hand pulls a fuse, no reenactment occurs, and no tourists are near. The cannon blasts are accompanied by sharp reports of musket fire, as if soldiers unseen are trading volleys across the courtyard, a battle replayed from centuries ago. The phenomenon is unnerving because it is both vivid and precise. Witnesses describe the noise as directional, coming from specific points along the battlements and walls, and yet no physical source is ever found. Those who hear the phantom cannon fire often describe a disorienting combination of sight and sound. The booms are not merely auditory. They carry vibrations through the ground, subtle tremors that can be felt beneath one's feet. Some visitors have noted flickers of light in the air, like the brief flash of a cannon's muzzle, or sparks of orange and yellow dancing along the stone walls in the darkness. The effect is unnervingly realistic. Many people report flinching, as if bullets are striking nearby, or instinctively ducking toward the nearest wall for cover. It is as though the siege has returned, briefly, to replay its terror on anyone who wanders the Presidio after sunset. Local lore suggests that the phantom cannon fire is tied to the tragic events of the Goliad massacre. Hundreds of Texian soldiers were executed after surrendering to Mexican forces in 1836. The sound of battle, long etched into the stone walls, and the memories of those who perished, is said to linger in the fortress, repeating itself for anyone sensitive enough to notice. Some believe the phenomenon is a residual haunting, a recording of trauma embedded in the very stones of the Presidio. Others speak of restless spirit soldiers who died in the line of duty, bound to the courtyard and ramparts, compelled to fight endlessly, their battle cries and gunfire echoing across time. Numerous eyewitness accounts paint a terrifying picture. One nighttime visitor described walking along the ramparts when a deep boom shook the ground beneath his feet. The sound came from the direction of the old cannon emplacements, though all weapons were long decommissioned. Moments later, he saw shadows moving against the wall, figures in old uniforms charging as if in formation, rifles and swords raised, yet vanishing before he could get a clear look. Another visitor recounted hearing musket volleys in the distance, followed by shouts and screams that seemed to surround him. He later realized he was standing in a completely empty courtyard, the night silent except for the ghostly echoes of a battle that had ended long ago. Paranormal investigators have attempted to capture the phenomenon using audio recorders, motion sensors, and infrared cameras. On several nights, recordings have captured sharp cannon blasts and crackling musket fire with no observable source. Infrared cameras sometimes pick up faint, moving silhouettes in the courtyard, appearing to line up and fire weapons, only to vanish seconds later. Those sensitive to spiritual energy often report a palpable tension, a heavy, almost suffocating presence that suggests the battlefield is not entirely gone. The echoes of fear, adrenaline, and pain seem to cling to the walls and air, replaying moments of human suffering for anyone who dares to listen. Some visitors have tried to rationalize the sounds as wind or distant fireworks, but the precision and realism of the cannon fire defy ordinary explanation. The booming is often directional, aligned with historical firing positions, and it carries the low-frequency resonance typical of actual artillery, something no natural occurrence could perfectly replicate. The temporal pattern of the blasts, with pauses and volleys mimicking real battle tactics, also suggests an intelligence behind the sounds, a ghostly reenactment guided by the memories of those who once fought and died here. Witnesses often feel the auditory phenomena affect more than just their hearing. The vibration of the cannon blasts seems to resonate through the body, a subtle warning that the past is pressing against the present. Some describe an inexplicable dread, as if invisible soldiers are closing in, unseen yet threatening. The combination of sound, vibration, and spectral visual cues leaves a haunting impression, one that many carry for days after leaving the fortress. The phantom cannon fire serves as a chilling reminder that Presidio La is more than a historical site. It is a vessel of memory and tragedy. Those who hear the booms in the dead of night are briefly transported to a time of fear, courage, and loss, where every shot fired represents the courage of soldiers who stood their ground, and every scream echoes the pain of lives cut short. It is a haunting that bridges centuries, reminding us that history is not only recorded in books, but also etched into the very stone and air of the places where it unfolded. Even when silence returns and the echoes fade, those who have heard the phantom cannon fire leave changed. They carry with them the sound of battle across time, a visceral connection to the courage, terror, and tragedy that shaped Presidio La. And for anyone who walks the grounds after sunset, the memory of those phantom blasts lingers, a ghostly heartbeat of a siege that refuses to be forgotten. Among the many restless spirits said to haunt Presidio La, none command the same reverence, and Isaias, the shadow of the executed general, Colonel James Fannin, a man of unwavering resolve and tragic fate, led Texian forces during the turbulent days leading up to the Goliad massacre. His leadership was defined by courage, strategy, and a steadfast loyalty to his men. But history would treat him cruelly after surrendering to Mexican forces under terms that promised protection. Fannin and his soldiers were executed, their deaths swift, merciless, and unjust. Today, visitors might walk the halls where Fannin once planned defenses, study maps, or confer with officers, marveling at the historic architecture. Yet, when the sun sets and the fortress is empty, a different presence emerges, one that commands attention without a sound. The shadow of the executed general is described as a dark, indistinct figure, often seen pacing the halls where decisions of life and death were once made. His silhouette is imposing, despite its spectral nature, a reminder of authority lost and justice denied. Those who witness him say he moves with purpose, a slow, deliberate pacing as if weighing decisions, reliving the final moments of his life over and over. The atmosphere around the shadow is heavy and oppressive. Witnesses report a sudden drop in temperature, the kind of chill that seeps into the bones and settles there. The air itself seems thicker, almost resistant, as if the general's sorrow and indignation have made the space denser. Some claim to feel an almost tangible tension pressing against their chests, the weight of history and injustice manifesting in a way that is both physical and psychological. The sense of being watched is overwhelming. One can feel ice-cold, calculating, and accusatory following every movement. Security guards and late-night historians recount hearing the faint echo of marching boots in the halls when no one else is present. Occasionally, there is the soft creak of floorboards under invisible weight, a rhythmic reminder that someone is walking these corridors long after his death. Some visitors have sworn they heard the distinct sound of a low, commanding voice issuing orders, phrases carried with authority, only to vanish when approached. The effect is deeply unnerving. The general, bound to his post, continuing to enforce discipline in a fortress empty of living officers. Paranormal investigators describe encountering an almost intelligent presence. Motion-sensing cameras often capture a shadow moving along corridors where no light or human figure is present. Infrared footage shows an outline of a tall man, shoulders squared, occasionally stopping to survey the room before resuming his methodical pace. When approached, the shadow does not flee, but instead seems to observe, as if weighing the intentions of the intruder. Some researchers have noted a subtle, magnetic pull in the area, a sensation that draws them toward the epicenter of the presence, compelling them to acknowledge the general's lingering authority. Local lore adds depth to the tale. Colonel Fannin, they say, cannot find rest because of the injustice of his execution. Unlike other spirits who linger due to violent deaths or unfinished business, his is a soul caught between honor and betrayal. He walks the halls of Presidio, law not to haunt, but to bear witness, to maintain the dignity denied to him in life. Those sensitive to spirits often feel a mixture of fear and respect, an understanding that the shadow is a sentinel, watching over the fortress with a vigilance that has transcended mortality. Visitors who have encountered the shadow describe a powerful emotional resonance. Some feel a surge of sorrow, almost empathetic, as if absorbing the weight of Fannin's despair. Others sense anger, a quiet but intense indignation that simmers in the stillness of the empty corridors. The combination of sorrow and fury creates an aura of tension so strong that even those skeptical of the paranormal report a visceral response, goosebumps, shivers, and a compulsion to move with care and reverence. One account tells of a historian working late in the Presidio archives. As he examined old orders and maps, he noticed a shadow crossing the doorway, long and dark. The temperature dropped sharply, and the historian felt an invisible weight pressing against his back. Slowly, the shadow moved down the corridor, pausing as if considering the papers on the table, before continuing its pacing. The historian later reflected that the experience left him with a profound sense of connection to the past, a tangible link to a man whose life had ended too soon and unjustly. The shadow of the executed general also interacts with other spirits in subtle ways. Some claim that on nights when cannon blasts or phantom gunfire are heard, the shadow appears first, surveying the courtyard and halls, as if orchestrating the replay of the siege. His presence seems tied to historical events, not random wanderings. In this way, he functions as both observer and participant, a guardian of memory and a living echo of the injustice endured by those who perished at Goliad. Those who respect the legend find that encounters are fleeting yet impactful. The shadow does not harm, but commands attention. He is a reminder that history is not silent, that injustices leave scars, and that some spirits cannot rest until their story is fully acknowledged. Visitors who leave the halls after witnessing him report a lingering sense of awe, an understanding that the fortress is not merely stone and mortar, but a vessel for memory, honor, and unresolved sorrow. The shadow of the executed general remains a testament to duty, courage, and the haunting weight of betrayal. He walks the halls tirelessly, a dark sentinel against time, reminding all who enter that history is never truly gone. And as long as the shadow paces the corridors of Presidio, Colonel Fannin's presence endures, a spectral figure of honor denied, duty unfulfilled, and a soul forever bound to the place where his life and legacy were violently cut short. Deep within the stone walls of Presidio, lies the prison, a place where time seems to stand still, and the weight of history presses heavily on anyone who enters. During the tumultuous days leading up to the Goliad massacre, this prison was filled with Texian soldiers who had surrendered, trusting that they would be treated according to the rules of war. Instead, they were confined to these cold, damp cells, left to await their execution. Their despair, fear, and anger did not vanish with death. According to legend, it lingered, etched into the very mortar and stone, creating one of the most chilling hauntings of the fortress. The whispering prisoners. Tourists who venture into the prison today often describe a strange, oppressive atmosphere one that settles immediately upon entering the narrow hallways and small, windowless cells. The air is heavy, carrying a faint metallic scent of rust and decay, as if the walls themselves remember the blood once spilled within. It is in this silence that the whispers begin. At first, they are barely perceptibly, almost an audible murmur that seems to circle the room. But for those who pause, listen carefully, and allow themselves to be still, the whispers grow clearer, forming fragmented words and half-finished sentences, the echoes of men speaking from beyond the grave. The voices are not uniform. Some are soft and trembling, as if spoken by men terrified of their fate. Others are louder, more insistent, carrying the authority of soldiers who had once led or inspired others in battle. These echoes often repeat phrases historically attributed to the prisoners' pleas for mercy, reassurances to comrades, or defiant proclamations of loyalty to their cause. "Tell my mother," one voice may begin, trailing off into silence. "Hold the line. We fight," another murmurs, fading as though the speaker is dragged away by unseen hands. The effect is unnerving, as if the prison has become a theater of endless despair, replaying the last hours of its occupants for anyone sensitive enough to perceive them. Many witnesses report that the whispers seem to move through the cells, drifting from one to another with no clear source. A single visitor may hear words from 3 different cells at once, the voices overlapping and creating a disorienting tapestry of sound. Occasionally, the whispers form full sentences, seemingly responding to the presence of living observers. Some tourists have described the sensation of being spoken to directly, as though a voice, faint but insistent, is trying to convey a message, a warning, a plea, or perhaps a confession left unfinished. Paranormal investigators have spent nights in the prison attempting to capture the phenomena on audio and video equipment. Many report capturing EVP's electronic voice phenomena, where the last words of prisoners are repeated in unmistakable clarity. Phrases such as, "I am ready," "Forgive me," and "Do not forget us," appear on playback, though no human voice was present during recording. Some have noted a sudden drop in temperature coinciding with the whispers, a cold that penetrates even the thickest clothing, as though the sorrow of the condemned still clings to the air. Sightings often accompany the auditory phenomena. Several visitors describe fleeting shadows passing along the cell walls, indistinct but unmistakably human in form. Others report a chilling sensation, like the brush of fingertips along their arms, the invisible touch of a prisoner reaching out in desperation. The presence of these whispers is strongest at night, though some sensitive individuals claim to hear them during the day, especially when the fortress is quiet and empty. The collective energy of centuries of fear and despair seems to concentrate here, making the prison one of the most haunted areas of Presidio La Bahia. There are numerous accounts of encounters that leave witnesses shaken for days. One historian recounts walking past a row of cells when he heard the faintest murmur, almost like a sigh. As he paused, the whisper grew, and he realized it was repeating a single, haunting phrase. "Remember us, remember us." He tried to respond aloud, calling back to the voice, but it only faded into silence, leaving him with an eerie sense that he had been momentarily present in the prisoner's final moments. Another visitor described stepping into a cell and hearing a cacophony of voices, overlapping and urgent, all speaking of duty, fear, and the longing for freedom. When she turned to leave, the voices ceased, but the cold lingered, following her as she exited the room. Local lore suggests that the whispering prisoners are not malevolent, but rather bound by the trauma of their final hours. Unlike spirits driven by anger or revenge, these echoes are trapped in a loop of despair and unfinished communication. They relive their final moments endlessly, seeking acknowledgement of the injustice that ended their lives. Some believe that the whispers also serve as a warning to visitors to respect the history of the Presidio, to honor the memory of those who suffered, and to recognize that death in the fortress was neither swift nor fair. The haunting of the whispering prisoners is a chilling reminder that history is not confined to books or plaques. It is embedded in the spaces where it occurred, carried forward in the energy of the past. Those who walk the prison hallways hear more than echoes. They sense the weight of humanity, the fear, courage, and despair that once filled these cells. The whispers persist as both a memorial and a warning, drawing attention to the lives lost and the injustices endured, and compelling visitors to remember. Even today, the echo of voices persists, faint but persistent, in the cells of Presidio. Those who have listened carefully report leaving changed, carrying with them the sorrow and memory of the prisoners. The whispers are more than sounds, they are a bridge to the past, a haunting testament to lives cut tragically short, and a reminder that some voices, though silenced in life, refuse to be forgotten. Along the northern wall of Presidio, LA, where the stonework rises like a silent sentinel, lurks one of the most unsettling legends of the fortress, the Hanged Man. For centuries, visitors have reported seeing a spectral figure, suspended in midair, as though caught in the act of execution, a ghostly echo of punishment, despair, and injustice. Unlike the whispers of prisoners or the drumming of phantom soldiers, this apparition is unmistakably visual, impossible to ignore, and carries with it a heavy weight of sorrow and terror. The story goes that during the turbulent days of the Goliad massacre and the fort's history of military conflict, certain individuals were executed along the north wall. While historical records are often vague, legends claim that one man's death was particularly unjust. He was accused of treachery, perhaps wrongfully condemned, and hanged where he now eternally lingers. Witnesses describe the figure as faintly luminous, its outline wavering like a candle flame in a draught. Yet even in this ephemeral state, the human shape is clear, a body suspended from an invisible noose, head bowed, feet dangling, as if frozen in the final moments of terror. Visitors often notice the hanged man unexpectedly, sometimes when they are not even looking directly at the wall. One moment the corridor seems empty and silent. The next, a subtle shift in the air or a movement at the corner of their vision reveals the figure. Those who do glimpse him report an intense chill, far colder than the night air outside. The temperature drops rapidly in the area surrounding the apparition, leaving skin prickling and breath visible in the sudden cold. Some describe a feeling of heaviness, as if the very air is pressing down, forcing acknowledgement of the tragedy embedded in the wall. It is not only the visual apparition that unnerves witnesses. Many report a sense of movement, as though the hanged man is swaying gently, caught in a wind no one can feel. Others hear faint creaking noises, like the groan of rope under strain, or whispers of despair that seem to emanate from the figure itself. These sounds are subtle but unmistakable, producing a sense of unease that lingers long after the witness has left the area. The combination of sight, touch, and sound makes the encounter deeply immersive, a haunting that seems to reach beyond mere vision. Paranormal investigators have long attempted to document the hanged man. Vertical outline where no one is standing. Audio equipment occasionally records low, sorrowful groans, or the soft scrape of a rope against stone. Motion sensors may detect movement in the space. The phenomenon is selective, often appearing only to those who are alone or particularly sensitive to the supernatural. This has fueled speculation that the figure is bound to the energy of the fort rather than any specific person, an echo of violence preserved in the stone. Local lore adds layers to the tale. The hanged man is said to be tied to the stone wall, not only by his death, but by the injustice that ended his life. Unlike other spirits who roam freely, he cannot leave, eternally bound to the site of his execution. Some stories suggest that the man continues to seek justice, his spirit swinging gently as if appealing for recognition or retribution. Others claim he simply relives the horror of his death, trapped in a perpetual loop of fear and agony, a stark reminder of the cruelty that humans can inflict upon one another. Tourists have reported unsettling interactions. One night, a visitor leaned against the north wall, unaware of the figure until a subtle draft brushed against his face. When he looked up, the hanged man appeared, swinging slowly, the outline of his body visible in the dim light. He froze, unable to move or look away, feeling the sorrow and injustice radiating from the apparition. Moments later, the figure vanished, leaving only the oppressive cold and the lingering sense of something unjustly punished. Others have described feeling sudden vertigo, as though the act of looking at the suspended figure twists perception, leaving them disoriented and shaken. The hanged man also seems to interact with the environment in subtle ways. Candles flicker or extinguish when he appears, and the faintest scent of damp rope and iron lingers in the air. Some claim that objects near the wall, books, furniture, or personal items left by visitors will move slightly, as if brushed by an unseen hand. It is never violent, but it reinforces the sense that the apparition is aware, and perhaps conscious of those who witness his eternal punishment. Historians and paranormal enthusiasts alike agree that the hanged man embodies the darker aspects of Presidio, LA's history, injustice, suffering, and the lingering weight of human cruelty. He is a presence that commands attention, demanding acknowledgement of the lives lost within the fortress walls. Unlike the more interactive spirits, he does not pursue, threaten, or communicate directly. Instead, he exists as a spectral monument, a reminder that some acts of violence resonate far beyond the moment of execution. Even today, visitors report fleeting glimpses along the north wall, accompanied by a chill, a whisper, or the subtle swing of an unseen figure. Those who witness the hanged man leave with a profound sense of history, sorrow, and unease, carrying the weight of a life condemned unjustly. His presence endures, a spectral warning that some souls remain tethered to the places where they suffered, and that the stone walls of Presidio remember every injustice inflicted within them. The hanged man is not merely a ghost, he is a testament to human cruelty, the injustice of death, and the enduring power of sorrow. He swings silently, patiently, and eternally, reminding all who see him that history is alive in the shadows, and that some stories can never be released from the walls that witnessed them. Among the most heart-wrenching legends of Presidio are the cries and laughter of children, echoing through corridors and empty rooms long after the fortress fell silent. These are not the innocent giggles of play, nor the soft coos of infants. They are the sounds of young lives caught in the chaos of war, a spectral chorus that refuses to fade from the walls of the historic fort. The crying children of the siege are said to haunt the very spaces where families once sought refuge, a reminder that the tragedies of battle extend far beyond the soldiers and commanders. During the tumultuous days leading up to the Goliad massacre, families accompanied officers and soldiers, seeking safety within the fort's stone walls. Children, unaware of the political and military tensions surrounding them, played in courtyards, explored corridors, and clung to their parents for comfort. But when the massacre struck, these young lives were not spared from fear, confusion, or death. According to legend, some children perished within the fort during these attacks, their spirits bound to the place where they suffered most. Visitors today report hearing their laughter and cries, sometimes mingled, sometimes alternating, filling the air with a hauntingly bittersweet soundscape. The phenomenon is most often experienced in the northern and eastern wings of the Presidio, where rooms remain largely untouched by modern restoration. Tourists and historians alike describe the sound as eerily lifelike. The tip-tap of small feet running across stone floors, the squeal of delight or surprise, followed by the sharp, sudden wail of a frightened child. At times, these sounds seem to come from empty rooms, their doors closed, their walls barren. Witnesses report that the cries and laughter often overlap, creating a surreal, almost cinematic auditory experience, as though the entire siege is replayed from the perspective of its youngest victim. Some visitors describe the emotional weight of these encounters. The laughter is not joyful. It carries an undertone of fear and longing, while the wails are filled with desperation. Those who hear the children often feel a sudden, inexplicable sadness, a cold weight pressing down on their hearts as if the fort itself is mourning. Paranormal investigators note that the sounds are highly localized, sometimes shifting from one room to another, sometimes appearing to follow a person as they walk through the fortress. Motion detectors and cameras rarely capture a visual presence. leaving only the auditory manifestation to hint at the spirit's existence. The spectral children are said to interact with the living environment in subtle but chilling ways. Objects left in corridors, shoes, hats, or personal items of visitors occasionally move slightly, as though nudged by tiny hands. Candles flicker when their sounds are strongest, and drafts seem to rush through hallways where no doors are open. Some witnesses describe a sensation of being watched, the air tingling with the presence of invisible eyes, following their every step while the sounds of playful footsteps and cries echo in the background. Accounts of encounters with the crying children vary in intensity. One evening, a night guard patrolling the Presidio reported hearing the faint laughter of children near the officer's quarters. He followed the sound, thinking perhaps a stray animal had entered, but found only empty, dust-filled corridors. The laughter was soon joined by sudden, piercing wails that seemed to come from the cells, the courtyard, and the attic simultaneously. The guard later described feeling a physical chill, as though icy fingers had run down his spine, leaving him shaken but unharmed. Historians who specialize in the fort's past often interpret the sounds as residual energy, the emotional imprint of children who experienced fear, confusion, and loss during the siege. Unlike other hauntings, where spirits appear to interact consciously with the living, the crying children seem to replay the trauma they endured, bound to specific locations within the fortress. Their presence is a poignant reminder that the tragedies of war extend far beyond the battlefield, touching even the youngest and most vulnerable. Some visitors have reported hearing individual voices clearly enough to distinguish words. "Mama, hold me," one whispered. "Don't leave me," cried another. Occasionally, a child's laughter will ring out, followed by a sorrowful sob, creating a jarring contrast between joy and despair. These auditory manifestations are often accompanied by fleeting shadows, small figures glimpsed in the corner of one's vision, vanishing when directly looked at. Some witnesses interpret this as the children attempting to reach out, to interact, or simply to be remembered. The crying children of the siege are also said to appear during times of reflection or commemoration at the Presidio, on anniversaries of historical events, or during quiet tours. The sounds seem stronger, as though the spirits are drawn to those who are attentive to their story. The phenomenon serves as both a haunting and a form of memorialization, reminding visitors of the human cost of conflict and the lives lost beyond the soldiers and generals recorded in history. Even today, long after the walls have been cleaned, the floors polished, and the fort's history cataloged for tourists, the sounds of children continue to haunt Presidio, LA. Their laughter, footsteps, and cries are not meant to terrify, but to evoke remembrance, a spectral testimony of innocence caught in tragedy. Those who hear the children leave with a profound sense of empathy, a lingering chill, and the awareness that some echoes of the past are too powerful to fade. The crying children of the siege are among the most enduring spirits of Presidio La Bahía. They embody both innocence and suffering, reminding all who enter that the fort's history is alive not only in stone and mortar, but in the lingering echoes of the young lives it once housed. Their laughter and wails serve as an invisible chorus, a haunting yet deeply human connection across centuries, ensuring that the smallest victims of history are never forgotten. As the sun dips below the horizon and darkness drapes over Presidio, a different kind of history begins to stir. Among the many hauntings reported by visitors and locals, few are as striking or as terrifying as the sightings of the Phantom Horsemen. These spectral cavalrymen appear along the perimeter of the fortress, their silhouettes emerging from the evening mist, galloping across open courtyards and along the battlements, only to vanish before reaching the living. Witnesses describe a surreal, almost cinematic spectacle, a vision of soldiers forever locked in the rhythm of duty, yet removed from the world of the living. The legend of the Phantom Horseman is deeply entwined with the fort's turbulent past. During times of siege and military activity, cavalry units patrolled the grounds, responding to threats and maintaining order. Horses thundered across the plains, riders carried orders, and messengers raced to relay information under the pressure of imminent attack. Many of these men died during battle or were executed afterward, leaving unfinished duties and unfulfilled commands. According to local lore, the spirits of these cavalrymen could not rest, bound to the fort and the open expanses surrounding it, repeating their patrols for eternity. Visitors first notice the phenomenon in the peripheral areas of the Presidio, where shadows stretch long against the stone walls and the faint outlines of trees and hills blur in the twilight. Some report hearing the soft, rhythmic pounding of hooves long before they see anything. The sound grows steadily louder, like a distant storm approaching, yet always maintaining the cadence of a cavalry charge. As the echo of hooves nears, the silhouettes of riders become visible dark shapes on horseback, elongated and wavering, their forms flickering as though seen through fog or rain. The phantom horsemen are said to appear in pairs, small groups, or even single riders. Witnesses consistently report that the figures are indistinct, faces are impossible to discern, uniforms are mere suggestions, and the horses' shapes seem to blur at the edges. Yet the presence is unmistakable. The movement is fluid, purposeful, and unnervingly synchronized, as if the riders are enacting a patrol they have been compelled to repeat for centuries. Observers often feel a sense of anticipation or unease, a knowledge that something is approaching. Even though the figures are mere shadows, the haunting is not purely visual. Many who encounter the phantom horsemen report a sudden chill, a sharp drop in temperature, and the faint scent of leather, sweat, and damp earth carried on the wind. Some describe an oppressive feeling of tension, as if invisible reins tug at the air itself. There are accounts of the hooves' impact creating vibrations in the ground, subtle enough to be felt in the feet, but powerful enough to suggest the weight of living horses. The combination of sound, motion, and atmosphere creates an immersive experience that leaves witnesses both awed and unnerved. Paranormal investigators have attempted to capture evidence of the phantom horsemen using night vision cameras, motion sensors, and audio recorders. On multiple occasions, footage reveals vague shapes moving rapidly across the periphery, often accompanied by unexplained bursts of sound hoofbeats, the clatter of metal stirrups, and faint commands or shouts in the distance. The images are fleeting, sometimes only a few seconds long, vanishing before the camera operator can focus or approach. EVP, electronic voice phenomena. Recordings occasionally capture low, urgent calls, echoing as though between living and spectral realms, adding weight to the theory that these are remnants of soldiers repeating the duties left incomplete in life. Eyewitness accounts often emphasize the emotional intensity of the encounter. One evening, a historian patrolling the outer walls reported hearing the distant rumble of hooves. He saw a line of riders approaching across the fields, shadows flickering in the mist, their forms indistinct but undeniably real. As he moved to get a closer look, the figures faded, dissipating like smoke before they reached the walls. The historian described feeling a combination of relief, awe, and profound sadness, sense of witnessing duty bound to a tragic past, replayed endlessly. Another visitor noted a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes, a subtle tension that persisted long after the figures had vanished, leaving her with the impression that the spirits were aware of those observing them. Some believe the phantom horsemen are more than mere echoes of history. According to local legend, they serve as guardians of the fort, patrolling the perimeter not only in ritual reenactment, but to warn intruders or remind the living of the sacrifices made within the walls. Their appearance is said to coincide with periods of reflection, historical tours, or moments when the fort is quiet, almost as though the spirits are drawn to those paying attention to the weight of history. Others theorize that these apparitions are residual, trapped energy replaying the chaos of past military engagements, the spirits forever bound to the paths they rode in life. Interestingly, witnesses report that the phantom horsemen vanish without a trace, leaving no hoofprints, no disturbance of the ground, no sound once they disappear. This sudden absence, combined with their spectral appearance and eerie cadence, reinforces the sense of otherworldliness. Those who see them leave with a lingering feeling of awe and unease, a connection to history that is as emotional as it is visual. The memory of galloping hooves, shadowed riders, and misty outlines remains vivid, a ghostly reminder of the lives and duties lost to time. The Phantom Horsemen of Presidio, LA, are a haunting testament to the courage, tragedy, and lingering presence of those who served and suffered within its walls. They embody the restless echoes of soldiers bound by duty, forever riding across the grounds they once defended. Visitors who witness their approach are granted a rare glimpse of history brought vividly to life, a fleeting vision of shadowed figures galloping across the mist, a haunting tableau that leaves an indelible mark on the memory. Even after they fade into the fog, the sound of distant hooves, the faint scent of leather and earth, and the chill in the night air serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone. The Phantom Horsemen continue to patrol the perimeter, silent and spectral, guardians of memory and witnesses to the tragedies that shaped Presidio. Within the quiet, shadowed rooms of Presidio, an eerie phenomena has long captivated and unsettled visitors: the candle flame apparitions. Unlike other hauntings that rely on sounds or fleeting shadows, this haunting is subtle, intimate, and profoundly unsettling. Flickering candle flames dance without any discernible cause, their movements too violent, too deliberate, to be attributed to a mere draft or vibration. And for those attuned to the supernatural, these flames are more than light, they are windows into the past, sometimes forming the faint, agonized faces of those who perished within the fortress. The phenomenon is most commonly reported in the chapel and officers' quarters, where historical events were most intense. During the tumultuous days of the Goliad massacre, these rooms were scenes of prayer, planning, and despair. Priests, officers, and even prisoners lit candles to illuminate their work, to provide solace, or simply to fend off the darkness of both night and circumstance. Legend holds that the intense emotions of fear, sorrow, and devotion were imprinted into these rooms, manifesting centuries later in the unpredictable behavior of flames. Visitors often report an immediate sense of unease upon entering these rooms. The air feels heavier, warmer in some areas, cooler in others, with an almost imperceptible hum that seems to originate from the walls themselves. Candles, whether historical reproductions or modern additions for tourists, flicker aggressively, as though buffeted by an unseen wind. The flames twist and writhe, stretching unnaturally, dancing higher and lower, sometimes bending sideways as if responding to invisible hands. Some witnesses describe the flickering as rhythmic, almost as though the flames are trying to communicate a message or replay a scene from the past. It is when the flames begin to form shapes that the haunting becomes truly disturbing. Many visitors swear that human faces appear within the fire itself. Pale, anguished visages, some screaming silently, others crying or staring with blank eyes. These apparitions are never permanent. They shift, waver, and vanish as quickly as they form. Yet the memory lingers, leaving a lasting impression of the lives and suffering once contained in these rooms. Paranormal investigators have attempted to record these phenomena, capturing brief bursts of light that appear to form distinct facial features before dissolving into normal flame behavior. On video, these images are fleeting but unmistakably an unearthly reminder that the past continues to assert its presence. The candle flame apparitions are not limited to visual manifestations. Some witnesses report subtle auditory experiences accompanying the flickering flames. Faint whispers, hushed prayers, or even low moans that seem to emanate directly from the flames. One frequent report describes a sensation akin to being watched. The flickering flames casting shadows that reach toward observers as though seeking recognition or acknowledgement. The combination of movement, spectral faces, and sound creates an immersive experience, leaving visitors both awed and unnerved. One account describes a night tour of the chapel, during which a group of visitors lit candles along the altar. As they moved to the rear of the room, the flames erupted violently, twisting and stretching in patterns that defied natural explanation. One candle's flame seemed to form the outline of a man's face, eyes wide with shock, mouth open in a silent scream. Another candle displayed a smaller face, that of a young boy, staring directly at a visitor with a look of desperate pleading. When the observers attempted to capture the phenomenon on camera, the faces vanished, leaving only ordinary flickering flames behind. Those present left the room shaken, their emotional state a mix of fear, sorrow, and awe at the vivid connection to history. Historians and paranormal enthusiasts speculate that the phenomenon is rooted in intense emotional energy. The flames act as a conduit, channeling the memories, fears, and sorrows of those who once lit candles or lived in these rooms. Some believe that the apparitions are not attempting to harm visitors, but rather to communicate, to replay moments of anguish, devotion, or final prayer. The faces that appear in the flames are often interpreted as spirits trapped between worlds, their presence imprinted upon the very light that once symbolized hope and comfort. Interestingly, the apparitions are sometimes selective. Not everyone witnesses the faces. Those who do are often quiet, reflective, or particularly sensitive to the emotional history of the fort. This has led some to suggest that the phenomenon is partially psychological, amplified by the knowledge of the fort's history. However, the consistency of reports over decades, across multiple groups and independent investigations, lends credence to the idea that there is something undeniably supernatural at play. The candle flame apparitions are among the most intimate and personal of Presidio La Bahia's hauntings. Unlike ghosts that roam halls or shadow figures that pace silently, these apparitions draw observers into a direct confrontation with the past. The flickering flames, with their shifting faces, act as a bridge between centuries, linking present-day visitors to the emotions, struggles, and suffering of those who once occupied the fortress. They serve as both warning and memorial, a visual representation of the human cost of war, captivity, and injustice. Even today, candles continue to flicker in these rooms, sometimes responding to a subtle draft, sometimes dancing as though alive. Observers who witness the faces speak of a profound, lingering impact, a chill in the air, a heaviness in the chest, and a sense that the walls themselves remember the events of centuries past. The candle flame apparitions remain a haunting testament to the spirits who refuse to be forgotten, illuminating the Presidio in a spectral glow that is as eerie as it is unforgettable. Through their flickering light, the dead reach out, offering a glimpse of sorrow, remembrance, and unresolved history. They are the souls of Presidio, law captured not in stone or record, but in the living fire, reminding all who enter that some memories burn too bright to be extinguished. Within the stone walls of Presidio, the history never truly sleeps. Among its many hauntings, one of the most intriguing and mysterious is that of the ghostly messenger. Unlike other spirits tied to sorrow or tragedy, this apparition seems bound by duty, eternally carrying orders and messages that will never reach their intended recipients. Witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of a spectral figure darting through hallways and courtyards, always in motion, always urgent, and always vanishing before anyone can intervene. The legend traces back to the turbulent days of the fort's military activity, when communication was essential for survival. Couriers on horseback or on foot would deliver vital orders from officers to soldiers, sometimes in the middle of a siege or under the threat of attack. These messengers often faced grave danger, rushing through chaotic battlefields, dodging enemy fire, or traversing empty corridors haunted by despair and fear. Some perished in the process, their missions left incomplete. It is said that one particularly dedicated courier, killed while trying to deliver a crucial message, remains bound to his duty even in death. Visitors first notice the ghostly messenger as a faint blur, a figure moving just at the edge of their vision. He is often described as wearing the uniform of a soldier or courier, indistinct and shrouded in shadows, carrying what appears to be a scroll or small satchel. The figure is in constant motion, moving quickly and purposefully through the fort's hallways and courtyards. Observers report a sense of urgency emanating from him, a tension that seems to radiate from the spectral form, pressing on those who witness him to move faster, to pay attention, to acknowledge the unfinished business he carries. Unlike other hauntings that rely on sound or physical interaction, the ghostly messenger is largely visual, though some visitors have reported faint auditory phenomena accompanying his appearance. A low rustle of paper, the snap of a leather strap, or even the distant echo of hurried footsteps often precedes his arrival. These sounds are subtle, yet unmistakable, and seem to signal the presence of a spirit trapped between worlds, repeating the same urgent actions night after night. The apparition is notoriously elusive. Those who attempt to follow him or approach him often find that he vanishes without warning, passing through walls, doors, or open spaces as if they were not solid. Sometimes the figure disappears at the exact moment a visitor arrives at the corridor's end, leaving only a residual chill and the faint sensation of urgency lingering in the air. Paranormal investigators attempting to document the phenomenon frequently capture sudden bursts of motion on infrared cameras or fleeting shadows in video recordings. But the ghostly messenger has never been caught in full, clear detail. Many who witness the apparition report an intense emotional impact. The figure's presence carries not just a tension of urgency, but also a profound sense of duty and loyalty. Witnesses describe feeling an unspoken message, a reminder of the importance of responsibility, the weight of orders left undone, and the human cost of military service. Some have reported an almost compulsion to pause, to stand still and acknowledge the messenger's work, sensing that any neglect might further trap the spirit in his endless loop. The ghostly messenger is said to appear at various points across the Presidio, but sightings are most common in areas historically used for communication. The central courtyard, officers' quarters, and hallways connecting strategic points of the fort. These are the same locations where actual messengers once rushed with dispatches, sometimes under fire, sometimes under the shadow of imminent execution. The alignment between historical function and paranormal activity has led historians and investigators alike to believe that the apparition is a direct residual imprint of the messenger's devotion and tragic fate. Some accounts describe additional, more interactive experiences. Visitors report feeling a subtle push or nudge as if the spirit is urging them forward, guiding them along a corridor or toward a specific door. Others describe seeing the object the messenger carries, the scroll or satchel, glow faintly, suggesting a supernatural emphasis on the importance of the task that remains undone. In rare cases, the apparition is accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature, as if the presence of the spirit itself chills the air, signaling both urgency and otherworldly power. The ghostly messenger is not malevolent. He does not attack, frighten deliberately, or linger to torment. Instead, he is an eternal worker, compelled to fulfill a duty that death interrupted. This distinguishes him from other apparitions at Presidio La, which are often tied to sorrow, fear, or tragedy. The messenger represents dedication, responsibility, and the persistence of purpose beyond the mortal world. His haunting is both eerie and awe-inspiring, a reminder that some spirits are bound not by pain alone, but by the commitment to complete the tasks they began in life. Visitors who witness the ghostly messenger often leave with a lingering impression of urgency and historical weight. Even after the apparition vanishes, the sensation of movement, the echo of footsteps, and the residual chill remain. Witnesses describe walking away from the site feeling compelled to reflect on duty, history, and the countless lives that labored under pressure, often with tragic outcomes. The presence of the messenger becomes more than a haunting. It transforms into a lesson, a spectral teaching of responsibility and remembrance. Today, the ghostly messenger continues to patrol the corridors and courtyards of Presidio La, carrying his unseen orders across the fort, forever vanishing before delivery. He is a silent testament to those who lived, served, and died with dedication, reminding all who witness him that duty and honor do not end with death. Each appearance is a fleeting window into the past, a bridge between history and the present, and a haunting symbol of the persistence of purpose across time. Within the centuries-old stone corridors of Presidio La, there exists a place that seems unremarkable, by day just another hallway, quiet and empty, lined with the worn stones of history. But those who have encountered it after dark or when the fort is otherwise deserted tell a chilling story. A dark red stain that appears suddenly on the floor, stubbornly unmoving, refusing to fade or be explained, known simply as the bloodstain. It is believed to mark the spot where a soldier fell centuries ago. His life violently ended, yet eternally recorded in the very walls of the fort. The hallway in question is narrow and dimly lit, the air heavy with the weight of history. Visitors report a sudden sense of unease when entering, an almost instinctive awareness that something unseen resides there. The bloodstain is said to appear without warning, a dark, almost liquid red patch on the stone floor. It does not spread or move. It remains in the exact location where the soldier supposedly collapsed, frozen in time, a reminder of the violence and chaos that once engulfed the fort. Historical records and legends suggest that during the fort's turbulent periods, particularly during the Goliad massacre, soldiers were often killed suddenly and brutally in hallways and rooms now open to the public. The bloodstain is said to be one of these locations, where a soldier, perhaps fleeing, perhaps trying to defend others, was struck down. Some believe the stain represents more than just physical blood. It is the imprint of suffering, terror, and injustice left behind by a life violently cut short. Witnesses describe a variety of experiences when encountering the bloodstain. Some report an immediate drop in temperature, a cold that seems to seep into bones rather than just brushing the skin. Others feel an oppressive heaviness, as if the air itself remembers the life lost at that spot. Occasionally, faint sounds accompany the visual phenomenon, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, whispers of commands or cries, a low, almost imperceptible groan. These auditory details reinforce the sense that the stain is not simply a mark on stone, but a nexus of past violence frozen in time. The visual appearance of the bloodstain is particularly unnerving. Unlike ordinary stains, it appears fresh, deep, and vivid, its color dark and rich, as if the blood itself refuses to age. Attempts to clean or remove it have reportedly failed. It reappears in the same place, sometimes even more defined than before. Paranormal investigators often bring cameras, ultraviolet lights, and thermal imaging equipment. But the phenomenon defies simple scientific explanation. On infrared footage, some claim to see a faint silhouette above the stain, a soldier, kneeling or falling, though the images are fleeting and often distorted. Visitors often describe an emotional resonance that accompanies the stain. It is not merely fear that grips them, but a complex mixture of sorrow, reverence, and a sense of witnessing history in its rawest form. Some say they feel the soldier's final moments, the panic, the struggle, the awareness of mortality. Others feel the weight of the injustice carried through the centuries, as if the stain is a memorial, demanding recognition of both life and violent death. Accounts vary, but certain elements remain consistent. The bloodstain is most often seen when the hallway is empty or when the observer is alone. Many describe a sudden urge to step back, to pause, and to respect the space, as if the soldier's presence exerts a tangible force on the living. Some visitors have reported seeing fleeting shadows move along the edges of their vision, or glimpsing a faint figure kneeling or slumping over the floor near the stain. Though the figure never approaches, its presence is unmistakable, tethered to the red mark in an eternal tableau of finality. Local legend further enhances the ominous nature of the bloodstain. It is said that the soldier's spirit remains tied to the spot, unable to move on until the injustice of his death is acknowledged. Those who linger too long in the hallway often feel a strange compulsion to leave offerings of respect, whether silently reflecting on the history or simply acknowledging the presence with a bowed head. Some even claim that in doing so, the oppressive weight and chill lifts slightly, as though the spirit has been momentarily acknowledged and recognized, though the stain itself never disappears. Paranormal experts suggest that the bloodstain is a residual haunting, a concentrated imprint of traumatic death. Unlike interactive ghosts, which respond to the living, the bloodstain appears to replay a single, tragic moment over and over. The soldier's final act, whether it was defiance, fear, or desperation, is preserved in the stone, and the stain acts as both a visual and emotional portal into that historical trauma. Those sensitive to energy often report feeling the strongest effects, sensing not just the physicality of death, but the lingering emotions of a life violently taken. Even today, the bloodstain continues to draw attention, curiosity, and unease. Tourists, historians, and paranormal investigators alike speak of the mark with a mixture of fear, fascination, and respect. It is not a haunting meant to frighten for entertainment. It is a solemn reminder of the fort's history, of the cost of conflict, and of lives abruptly ended. To encounter it is to witness the persistence of memory, a vivid testament that some tragedies leave marks that refuse to fade, etched forever in both stone and spirit. The bloodstain of Presidio La is more than a simple spectral phenomenon. It is a marker of history, a monument to a soldier who fell in the chaos of battle, and a reminder that even centuries later, the echoes of violence and loss can manifest in ways that challenge understanding. It stands as a testament to the fort's enduring past, a visual and emotional connection to the lives forever imprinted on its stone corridors, and a haunting presence that ensures that some stories of sacrifice and sorrow are never forgotten. Among the many haunted tales of Presidio, La few are as chilling or as enigmatic as that of the soldier who walks through walls. Unlike other spirits that linger in familiar locations or replay moments of past tragedy, this apparition defies the very laws of nature, emerging from solid stone only to vanish into thin air. Visitors and guides alike describe the figure with a mix of awe, fear, and profound curiosity, for it appears as a living echo of the fort's violent and turbulent past. The sightings typically occur along the older corridors of the Presidio, where thick stone walls form narrow hallways and rooms once used by soldiers and officers. It is here that visitors report a sudden chill, a subtle shift in the air, and then, as if stepping out of another dimension entirely, a soldier appears. Observers describe him as dressed in the uniform of the fort's original garrison, a faded coat, a hat, and boots worn with the passage of countless years. His expression is often solemn, sometimes blank, other times carrying the weight of a burdened conscience. What is most unnerving, however, is his entrance. He does not walk through a door or emerge from a shadow. He simply steps from the stone itself, as if the wall were liquid, bending space to allow him passage. Witnesses consistently report the same sequence of events. At first, there is an unexplained sensation of being watched, accompanied by an inexplicable drop in temperature. Then, out of the corner of the eye, movement appears, the outline of a soldier forming in the middle of a solid wall. Many describe a sense of disbelief, a momentary inability to comprehend what is happening. The figure solidifies, turning toward those who see him. He does not speak. He does not move beyond the initial space. Instead, he stares silently, as if silently judging or acknowledging the observer, before dissolving into thin air without a trace. The phenomenon is not purely visual. Many who have witnessed a soldier who walks through walls report subtle auditory and tactile sensations. Some describe a low, almost imperceptible hum, like the vibration of armor or the faint echo of marching footsteps. Others report the sensation of a presence, a pressure in the chest or the tingling of skin, as if the soldier's energy momentarily intersects with the physical world. Cameras and recording devices often fail to capture the apparition clearly, though some paranormal investigations have documented fleeting heat signatures, unexplained shadows, and brief, unexplained distortions in the air where the soldier appeared. Historical accounts suggest that soldiers stationed at Presidio La faced countless dangers. Sieges, skirmishes, and executions left the garrison under constant stress and threat. And some soldiers died within these very walls, sometimes alone, sometimes in chaos. It is believed that the soldier who walks through walls may be one such soul, forever bound to the fort by duty, trauma, or unfinished business. Unlike other apparitions who replay events or appear to mourn, This soldier seems almost neutral, a silent observer, frozen in an eternal moment of recognition. Visitors' reactions vary, but the apparition consistently leaves a lasting impression. Many describe a profound sense of awe, combined with an unsettling awareness that the boundaries between life and death, past and present, are fragile in this space. Some feel compelled to remain still, afraid that any movement might break the spell or provoke the soldier to vanish prematurely. Others report a lingering chill, a sense of unresolved history pressing against the modern day, and a quiet realization that the fort's past is not entirely confined to its stone walls. The soldier who walks through walls is particularly active at night or during quiet tours, when the fort is mostly empty. In these moments, the atmosphere becomes almost tactile, the air heavy, the shadows long, the silence broken only by the occasional whisper of wind or the faint creak of the structure settling. Observers report that the soldier's appearances are fleeting but precise, suggesting a deliberate rhythm to his haunting. He seems to emerge where historical records indicate key events or deaths occurred, aligning his spectral presence with the history etched into the stone. Interestingly, the soldier does not interact aggressively with visitors. He does not follow, speak, or gesture, unlike some spirits reported elsewhere in the fort. His presence is silent, observational, and hauntingly solemn. Some paranormal experts speculate that this behavior indicates a residual haunting combined with intelligence, a spirit aware of its environment, choosing to remain apart, yet tethered to the material world. Others argue that it is a memory frozen in time, a projection of historical trauma, or a manifestation of collective energy from the fort's turbulent past. Accounts of multiple sightings often share similar descriptive details: the uniform, the silent stare, the emergence from solid stone, and the sudden disappearance. Some witnesses claim that the soldier's gaze carries an emotional weight, a mixture of duty, regret, and mourning that transcends words. There is a sense that he bears witness, silently acknowledging the passage of centuries, the footsteps of tourists, and the ongoing remembrance of events that shaped the fort. Even after the soldier vanishes, the space feels altered. The air remains heavy, charged with energy, and many visitors report lingering feelings of awe or unease. Some say they can still feel his gaze, as though the soldier watches from beyond the veil, a spectral guardian and witness to history. The soldier who walks through walls is a haunting reminder that Presidio, LA, is more than stone, and Mortarit is a living repository of memories, tragedies, and unfinished duty. In the end, the soldier who walks through walls embodies the essence of the Presidio's past, a space where history intersects with the supernatural, where courage and tragedy leave lasting impressions, and where the echoes of lives long gone continue to wander. His appearances are fleeting yet unforgettable, silent yet profoundly communicative. For those who witness him, the soldier's presence serves as both a haunting and a solemn reminder of the human stories embedded in every stone of Presidio. In the quiet of night, when the fort of Presidio, LA, is bathed in moonlight and the last traces of human activity have faded, a sound occasionally pierces the stillness, a deep, resonant toll of the chapel bell. What makes this phenomenon so unsettling is not the bell itself, but the fact that no one is present to ring it. There are no hands to pull the rope, no footsteps climbing the stairs, no creaking of doors opening. The bell tolls alone, echoing across the stone walls, down empty corridors, and through the silent courtyards, carrying with it a profound sense of sorrow, warning, and mystery. The chapel, a striking structure within the fort, has always been a focal point of both faith and history. Its whitewashed walls and simple wooden pews belie the intense emotions and tragedies that occurred within and around it. During periods of siege, massacre, and occupation, the chapel served as a place of last rites, desperate prayers, and moments of reflection amid chaos. It was here that priests tried to comfort the dying, officers sought guidance, and soldiers and civilians alike confronted the specter of mortality. Legend holds that the weight of these emotions remains embedded in the very structure, occasionally manifesting in the supernatural tolling of the bell. Visitors often report hearing the bell in the dead of night, usually around midnight. The sound is described as unnervingly clear and resonant, vibrating through the air with a precision that no ordinary bell might achieve when left to the elements. It is not the faint creak of a rope or the random tolling caused by wind. It is deliberate, measured, and mournful. Those familiar with the chapel's dimensions note that the echoes carry in a way that suggests intention, as though the sound is deliberately reaching across specific areas of the fort. The origin of the tolling remains a mystery, but local legend provides several possible explanations. Some believe that it is the spirit of a priest, a devoted figure who died during one of the fort's darkest moments, continuing his duties from beyond the grave, unable to provide last rites to the countless soldiers and civilians who perished during attacks or massacres. This spectral priest is said to ring the bell nightly, calling the living to remember the dead and honor the lives lost. Others suggest a more tragic origin, that the bell tolls in synchronization with the deaths of the fort's occupants, particularly during the infamous Goliad massacre. According to this theory, the bell tolls to mark the anguish of those who fell, a reminder that their lives ended abruptly and without ceremony. Witnesses describe feeling a sudden chill when the bell rings, an oppressive weight that seems to press down on the chest, and a sense of being watched by invisible eyes. Some even report seeing shadowy figures moving within the chapel or along the walls of the courtyard, as though drawn to the sound or participating in its solemn ritual. Paranormal investigators and nighttime visitors have attempted to capture the bell tolling on camera and audio devices, often with compelling results. Recordings frequently pick up the deep, resonant tone of the bell, sometimes accompanied by faint echoes of footsteps or low murmurs in the background. These auditory layers give the impression of a living event, a moment of history replaying itself through sound rather than sight. Infrared and night vision cameras occasionally detect fleeting shadows near the bell tower, but the person or spirit responsible remains unseen, further deepening the mystery. Experiences of those who hear the bell are often emotional and profound. Many report a mixture of fear, reverence, and sorrow, a sensation that blends the supernatural with the weight of history. Some visitors feel compelled to kneel, to pause, or to silently acknowledge the lives that were lost. Others describe a momentary feeling of being transported back in time, as though the tolling bell carries them into the fort's past, allowing them to witness the anguish and courage of those who once occupied the stone walls. Interestingly, the bell does not toll randomly. Witnesses claim that it usually rings on nights when the fort is completely empty, when no modern disruptions are present. It has been noted during periods of historical anniversaries or significant dates related to battles and massacres. Some theorists suggest that the bell is a temporal anchor, responding to the lingering energy of historical trauma, calling attention to events that still resonate centuries later. The sound seems to communicate, not through words, but through the sheer force of its presence, evoking a visceral connection to history that is difficult to ignore. The tolling also affects those outside the chapel. Residents and visitors in the nearby area often report hearing the bell reverberate across the fort, echoing through courtyards and hallways, sometimes lingering for minutes before fading into silence. The effect is unnerving because it seems to emanate from a source that is both near and impossibly distant, giving the impression that the sound itself is aware of the listener, deliberately reaching out to ensure that its message is heard. The chapel bell tolling alone is not meant to frighten for entertainment. It is a haunting that carries a solemn weight, a connection to centuries of history, grief, and devotion. Its sound is a reminder of the many lives intertwined with Presidio, the soldiers who died defending it, civilians caught in its conflicts, and priests who attempted to provide comfort where death reigned. The bell tolls as a memorial, a marker, and a ghostly messenger of history itself, ensuring that the events that unfolded within the fort are never forgotten. Even today, visitors who are fortunate or unfortunate enough to hear the bell described leaving the fort with a deep sense of reverence. The sound resonates long after it has faded, echoing in memory as it does in stone. The chapel bell tolling alone is more than a haunting. It is a reminder that some echoes of the past are too powerful to fade, and that even in silence, history has a way of speaking. Within the storied walls of Presidio La Bahía, amidst echoes of soldiers and long-forgotten battles, there exists a gentler yet profoundly moving presence, the ghost of the nurse. Unlike the spirits of soldiers, prisoners, or officers, this apparition is tied to compassion, to the act of care amidst chaos. Visitors who encounter her speak not of terror, but of an overwhelming sense of sorrow, empathy, and lingering humanity, as though she continues to tend to the wounded centuries after her death. The nurse is said to have been one of the many women who remained at the fort during times of conflict, tending to the injured, offering comfort, and risking her life to help those caught in the crossfire. Historical accounts of the fort sieges describe her as tireless and devoted, moving from one soldier to another with quiet efficiency, binding wounds, administering water, and whispering words of reassurance. It is believed that during the siege, she faced insurmountable odds, unable to save everyone, and that her spirit remained behind, bound by her duty and compassion. Sightings of the ghost of the nurse usually occur in the infirmary area of the fort, where the wounded were historically treated. Witnesses report seeing a figure in period attire, a long dress, a simple apron, and a cap covering her hair. She often carries bandages or small bundles, moving deliberately as though tending to unseen patients. The apparition appears silently, her footsteps light on the stone floor, almost imperceptible. Yet there is a clear sense of motion and purpose. Observers often feel a chill in the air or a sudden drop in temperature, as if the room itself recognizes her presence. Many who have encountered her describe the nurse as ethereal and fleeting. She moves along the infirmary, stopping at certain spots to fold bandages or offer comforting gestures before vanishing into thin air. Some have reported hearing soft, indistinct whispers, words of reassurance, or even quiet instructions as though she is still speaking to the soldiers she tended long ago. The voice is rarely loud enough to be fully understood, but the tone conveys care, urgency, and dedication. Visitors often feel compelled to pause and remain still, sensing that their acknowledgement is necessary, even if they cannot see her directly. The emotional impact of seeing the ghost of the nurse is profound. Unlike the restless soldiers or apparitions tied to tragedy, she emanates a soothing presence, one that seems to absorb the fear and pain of the fort, rather than intensify it. Witnesses often describe feeling a sense of peace, tempered by sadness, as if they are standing in the presence of someone who has borne immense suffering and continues to carry it silently. The effect is both haunting and comforting, a paradox that leaves a lasting impression on all who witness it. Paranormal investigators have documented strange phenomena in conjunction with the nurse's appearances. Cameras sometimes capture faint figures in long, flowing dresses moving through empty corridors. Infrared thermometers detect sudden cold spots where she is said to appear. Audio recordings occasionally pick up faint, high-pitched whispers, often coinciding with her sighting. These events suggest that the nurse's spirit is not only present visually, but also interacts subtly with the environment, leaving behind traces of her devotion to duty and care. Stories passed down by guides and local historians suggest that the nurse's haunting is tied to unfinished work. Some believe she remains because she could not save everyone during the siege, her spirit lingering to continue tending the wounded in perpetuity. Others suggest that her compassion became so powerful during life that it imprinted upon the walls and stones of the infirmary, manifesting as the spectral presence of a woman still bound to her mission of care. The idea that a spirit could remain to continue acts of kindness long after death resonates deeply with visitors, making her one of the fort's most memorable and emotionally affecting apparitions. Sightings of the ghost of the nurse are not limited to visual appearances. Many visitors report tactile experiences, such as a gentle brushing on the arm, a cool hand hovering nearby, or the sudden sensation of warmth where none should exist. Some have felt as though bandages were lightly adjusted or moved, as if she is performing her duties in secret. These subtle interactions reinforce the idea that her presence is active and purposeful. not a passive replay of historical events. The nurse's apparition is most often seen during quiet hours, particularly at dusk or nighttime when the fort is empty of tourists. In these moments, the air seems to grow heavy with history, the past converging with the present. The faint scent of herbs or antiseptic has been reported, as if she carries the remnants of her healing work. Witnesses describe an uncanny clarity during these encounters, a feeling of witnessing history through the lens of compassion rather than violence. Despite the haunting nature of the encounter, the ghost of the nurse does not instill fear. She is a presence of remembrance, a guardian of history, and a symbol of humanity amidst suffering. Her appearances remind visitors that behind every battle and every tragedy are individuals who cared, who acted selflessly, and who sought to alleviate suffering even in impossible circumstances. She embodies the quieter, often overlooked heroism of the fort, and through her spectral presence, the stories of compassion and care are preserved alongside the tales of violence and loss. Even after she vanishes, the impact lingers. Visitors leave with a sense of reverence and reflection, often feeling that they have been allowed a glimpse into the fort's most human moments. The ghost of the nurse is a haunting not of fear, but of empathy, a spectral presence that continues her work and reminds all who encounter her that the echoes of kindness can persist long after death. In the silence of the fort, amid the shadows of history, she remains a gentle guardian, eternally tending to the unseen wounded and whispering comfort through the centuries. The Armory of Presidio, LA, once a vital hub of military preparation, stands today as a silent testament to centuries of soldiers, battles, and vigilance. By day, the room is filled with displays of historical weaponry, carefully preserved cannons, and racks of muskets. But when the fort is empty and the sun dips below the horizon, something strange occurs. The unmistakable sound of marching boots on the stone floor, echoing through the cold, cavernous space. Visitors and guides alike describe a phenomenon that defies explanation, a chorus of footsteps that seems to herald troops preparing for battle. Long after the fort's soldiers have passed into history, the sound begins subtly, a soft tapping that seems to emanate from the far corner of the armory. Those nearby may initially mistake it for echoes of creaking wood or loose stones underfoot, but the rhythm is unmistakably deliberate. It is the cadence of trained soldiers, moving in formation, boots striking the stone with measured precision. The footsteps grow louder, filling the room with a steady, haunting march, often accompanied by the faint clatter of metal swords brushing against scabbards, or the subtle jingling of accoutrements carried by men long dead. Many visitors report that the footsteps are accompanied by a palpable change in the atmosphere. The air grows colder, heavier, charged with the residual energy of countless soldiers who once occupied the space. Some describe a tingling sensation along the spine, a sudden awareness of unseen eyes watching, as though the troops are not merely phantom echoes, but aware, present entities. The effect is both unnerving and mesmerizing, as if the very floor remembers the weight and discipline of those who once marched across it. The history of the armory provides chilling context for these occurrences. During periods of conflict, it was here that soldiers were issued weapons, prepared for battle, and drilled in military maneuvers. The fort's garrison faced numerous sieges and attacks, often with little warning. Within these walls, men trained, fought, and sometimes died. Leaving behind more than memories, they left traces of their existence, so vivid that some believe they continue to imprint upon the stone itself. The footsteps in the armory are thought by many to be a manifestation of these residual energies, a replay of the fort's martial past. Eyewitnesses often describe an uncanny clarity in the phenomenon. The footsteps are not random. They follow specific routes, moving between weapon racks, along the central aisle, and around the perimeter, as if soldiers were preparing for inspection or deployment. Some visitors claim to see fleeting shadows accompanying the sounds, the outline of men in period uniform appearing and disappearing at the edges of perception. Occasionally, a sudden metallic clank is heard, as though a musket has been lifted from its rack, inspected, and replaced. Yet when observers investigate, nothing is out of place. and the room remains empty. Paranormal experts who have studied the armory suggest that the phenomenon represents a combination of residual and intelligent haunting. The regularity and precision of the footsteps indicate a memory embedded within the space, a repetition of actions once performed countless times by disciplined soldiers. However, the occasional appearance of shadowy figures and subtle environmental changes, such as doors rattling, temperature fluctuations, or the faint impression of movements, suggest that there may be awareness behind the activity. The spirits may not merely replay events. They could be observing, interacting subtly with those who enter their domain. Visitors often report emotional reactions that go beyond fear. Many describe a sense of awe, as though they are witnessing history unfold before them. The footsteps carry with them an unspoken story, the anticipation before battle, the tension of soldiers waiting for orders, the discipline drilled into every man who stood guard. There is a haunting beauty in this echo of the past, a reminder that the fort was not merely a building, but a living, breathing center of military life, where every stone, plank, and corner held purpose and duty. The phenomenon is most frequently reported during the quiet hours, especially at night when the fort is empty of tourists. In these moments, the stone floor seems to resonate more vividly with the energy of the past. Guides often caution visitors that even the bravest of hearts can feel a profound emotional impact when the footsteps begin. Some report feeling the air shift around them, an almost imperceptible brush, as though soldiers are passing close by. Careful to maintain formation, aware of their surroundings, even in the afterlife. The footsteps in the armory are also tied to local lore. Some believe that the soldiers who appear are souls unable to rest, bound to the fort by duty or unfinished business. Others suggest that they are guardians, replaying their vigilance to ensure the fort remains protected, even in centuries long after its last battle. There are accounts of visitors sensing a sudden pause in the footsteps as they move, as if the phantom soldiers have acknowledged their presence and allowed them a measure of respect before resuming their march. Despite the eerie nature of the phenomenon, encounters are rarely described as malevolent. The spirits do not chase, harm, or threaten. They exist as echoes of the past, reminders of the discipline, sacrifice, and human lives entwined with the stone walls of Presidio. Witnesses often leave the armory with a mix of relief and reverence, feeling that they have glimpsed history in a way that transcends books, tours, or reenactments. The footsteps serve as a bridge between the past and present, a tangible reminder of the fort's storied legacy and the men who once walked its halls. In the end, the footsteps in the armory are a haunting both physical and emotional, resonating through stone, air, and memory. They remind visitors that the fort's history is alive, embedded in the very walls and floors, and that the echoes of the past are never truly silent. Those who hear the Phantom March leave with a profound awareness that Presidio La is more than a relic. It is a repository of human lives, discipline, and duty, preserved in the spectral rhythm of marching boots that continue long after the living have gone. Among the many ghostly legends of Presidio, a few are as unnerving and mysterious as the tale of the vanishing officer. Unlike other apparitions that linger in familiar spots or replay moments of tragedy, this spirit interacts directly with the living, appearing as a commanding presence only to vanish suddenly, leaving visitors both awed and chilled. The vanishing officer embodies the fort's long history of military discipline and authority, a spectral echo of the men who once ruled the halls with precision and vigilance. Sightings of the vanishing officer often occur in the upper levels of the fort, near the officers' quarters and administrative rooms. Visitors describe seeing a man dressed in the traditional uniform of the Presidio's original garrison, a dark coat with brass buttons, a neatly tied sash, and polished boots that gleam even in the dim light. His posture is rigid, upright, and unmistakably commanding. He moves with purpose, pacing through corridors, or approaching visitors as if to inspect them or provide guidance. But before any interaction can fully unfold, he disappears often mid-step, leaving a sudden coldness and a lingering sense of authority in the air. The experiences are both visual and sensory. Observers frequently describe an immediate drop in temperature when the officer appears, a chill that crawls along the skin and seeps into the bones. Some report the faint smell of gunpowder or old leather, as though the atmosphere itself has been infused with the echoes of historical military life. Others notice subtle tactile sensations, a brief brush of air along the arm, the impression of being lightly tapped on the shoulder, or the feeling of someone standing behind them for a moment before vanishing. These sensory elements intensify the eerie nature of the encounter, making the vanishing officer a presence that is both commanding and disconcerting. Eyewitnesses recount a consistent sequence of events. The officer appears quietly, often at the edge of the visitor's field of vision. He may pause to gesture toward a hallway, point to a room, or appear to give silent instructions. Some guests describe him guiding them along corridors, seemingly intent on leading them to a specific area of the fort. And then, just as abruptly as he appeared, he dissolves into thin air, leaving no trace but the echo of his steps. A lingering chill, and an overwhelming awareness that the fort is alive with memories of command and discipline. Historians suggest that the vanishing officer may be the spirit of a commanding figure who once oversaw the garrison, ensuring that operations ran smoothly, even in times of chaos. Records indicate that officers at Presidio La often faced extraordinary pressure, responsible not only for strategy and defense, but also for maintaining order among soldiers during sieges and attacks. The apparition may represent a residual imprint of authority, a spirit bound to the fort by the duties and responsibilities he upheld in life. His appearances are deliberate, precise, and imbued with the energy of a man who could never entirely leave his post, even in death. Paranormal investigators have documented numerous anomalies coinciding with sightings of the vanishing officer. Cameras sometimes capture faint shadows or blurred figures dressed in period attire, moving along hallways or through doorways. Audio recordings occasionally reveal the faintest hints of commands, the quiet shuffle of boots, or the soft creak of a door swinging closed. Infrared and thermal imaging devices detect unexplained heat signatures in areas where the officer has appeared, suggesting that his presence leaves both a visual and energetic imprint on the environment. The vanishing officer is also known for eliciting strong emotional reactions. Visitors often describe a mix of respect, awe, and fear. Some feel as though they are being silently evaluated, as though their behavior within the fort is under scrutiny by a long-dead authority figure. Others describe a sense of safety or guidance, as if the officer is protective rather than threatening, intent on preserving the legacy and order of the fort, even from beyond the grave. The experience is fleeting but profound, leaving a lasting impression that lingers long after the visitor has left the stone corridors. Interestingly, the officer's vanishing is as precise as his appearances. Witnesses often report that he disappears without warning, mid-step or mid-gesture, leaving behind a sudden, almost tangible emptiness. There is no sound, no blur of motion, only the abrupt cessation of presence and the lingering evidence of his passage. A chill, the faint echo of boots on stone, and the unshakable feeling that he has been observing them closely. This sudden disappearance adds a layer of mystery and intrigue, emphasizing the ephemeral nature of his haunting. Local legends suggest that the vanishing officer serves as a guardian of Presidio La, maintaining the fort's order long after the last soldier departed. Some believe he ensures that visitors respect the fort's history, guiding those who wander with curiosity but vanishing if approached too closely or without proper reverence. Others suggest he is bound to relive the responsibilities of his command endlessly, a reminder of the sacrifices and discipline that defined the fort's operational life. The presence of the vanishing officer reinforces the idea that Presidio La is not merely a historical monument but a living repository of human experience. He represents the dedication, authority, and vigilance that once defined the fort, connecting modern visitors to the daily realities of life, duty, and death within its walls. His spectral appearances are both a haunting and a history lesson, a bridge between past and present that is tangible, emotional, and undeniably real for those who encounter him. Even after he vanishes, the memory of the officer lingers. Visitors often report feeling his presence for minutes afterward, a residual energy that refuses to dissipate immediately. The chill, the echo of footsteps, the sensation of being watched, these are the after-effects of his brief, commanding visitation. The vanishing officer reminds all who pass through Presidio La that history is not confined to books or plaques. It resides in the air, the stone, and the echoes of those who lived it. The vanishing officer is more than a ghost. He is the embodiment of duty, vigilance, and the enduring presence of history. In the silent corridors of the fort, amid shadows and echoes, he continues to patrol, guide, and vanish, leaving an indelible mark on all who are fortunate or, perhaps unfortunate enough to witness him. The dining hall of Presidio La, once a place of camaraderie and sustenance, has a history steeped in both celebration and tragedy. Today, it serves as a quiet exhibit space, its long wooden tables polished, its chairs neatly aligned, and the air seemingly still. Yet, beneath this veneer of calm, something restless stirs. Visitors and staff have long reported strange occurrences, phenomena that cannot be explained by wind, settling wood, or human error. Chairs topple without reason, silverware slides across tables, and plates shatter, sometimes with a loud crash, sometimes as a subtle, sinister whisper of glass breaking. These manifestations are attributed to the poltergeist haunting the dining hall, a spirit that seems to interact directly with the physical environment. Unlike apparitions tied to sorrow or specific events, this poltergeist is active, unpredictable, and mischievously violent. Its presence is felt most strongly during the evening hours, when the fort is empty and the echoes of past meals, conversations, and disputes linger in the air. Those who have experienced it describe an atmosphere thick with energy, a sense that the hall itself is alive and aware. Eyewitness accounts are both consistent and unsettling. Visitors often hear sudden, sharp noises, the scrape of a chair across the floor, the clatter of a plate falling, or the metallic ring of a fork sliding across a table. Sometimes, objects move slowly, almost deliberately, as if guided by an unseen hand. Chairs may tip backward without a push, utensils slide across polished surfaces, and in some cases, entire place settings are displaced. The poltergeist's activity is not limited to small disturbances. Some witnesses describe violent eruptions, as though the spirit is frustrated or angry, sending objects crashing to the floor with tremendous force. Those who have spent extended time in the hall report a distinct change in atmosphere preceding the activity. The air grows heavy, almost suffocating, and the subtle vibration can be felt through the floorboards. Shadows seem to shift and lengthen unnaturally, while temperature fluctuations from sudden cold drafts to brief stifling warmth signal the poltergeist's approach. Many visitors have noted the sensation of being watched, a prickling awareness that the spirit is conscious of their presence, perhaps even reacting to it. Local legend provides possible origins for the poltergeist. Some say it is the restless spirit of a cook or servant who worked in the dining hall during times of siege and chaos. Overwhelmed by grief, anger, or exhaustion, this individual may have died in frustration or despair, leaving behind a turbulent energy that cannot rest. Others suggest that the poltergeist is a manifestation of the violent events that occurred in and around the fort. The chaotic echoes of fear, hunger, and conflict imprinted on the hall itself. Whatever the origin, the result is a spirit that continues to exert its will over the physical space, reminding visitors that the past remains alive and potent. The poltergeist's activity has been documented by paranormal investigators on numerous occasions. Cameras have captured objects moving without apparent cause, while audio devices occasionally record faint sounds of clattering, scraping, and even muffled voices. These phenomena appear spontaneously, with no discernible trigger, reinforcing the sense that the entity is intelligent, aware, and capable of interacting with its environment. Infrared and thermal imaging sometimes reveal sudden anomalies in the corners of the hall or near tables, further suggesting the presence of a non-corporeal, yet energetically active spirit. Visitors often report a mixture of fear, fascination, and respect when encountering the poltergeist. The experience is unpredictable. Some may enter the hall without incident, only to witness a chair topple seconds after they leave. Others may feel objects move around them, or hear the distinct scraping of utensils across tables. The sensation of unseen activity is enhanced by the hall's architectural features. High ceilings, long wooden tables, and reflective surfaces amplify both sound and shadow, making the poltergeist's influence even more dramatic. Psychological effects are also notable. Many who witness the activity describe feelings of tension, apprehension, and even nausea, as if the poltergeist's energy is physically palpable. Others report a sense of urgency, a subconscious warning to move carefully or respect the space. Yet, despite the fear it inspires, there is a certain awe connected to witnessing the poltergeist's manifestations. Visitors feel as though they are in the presence of history itself, a tangible reminder that the events, emotions, and labor of the past remain embedded in the fort. Interestingly, the poltergeist's behavior sometimes appears reactive rather than random. Several witnesses have reported that the activity intensifies when they speak aloud, laugh, or touch objects, suggesting an awareness of human interaction. Plates may slide faster, utensils may clatter louder, and chairs may topple more abruptly, as though the spirit is responding to intrusion, curiosity, or disruption. This gives the haunting a dynamic quality, a sense that the dining hall is not merely replaying past events, but actively engaging with the present. Despite its disruptive nature, the poltergeist in the dining hall is not malevolent in the traditional sense. There are no reports of direct attacks or harm, only the unsettling movement of objects and the eerie presence it creates. It serves as a reminder of the fort's turbulent past, the fear, the urgency, and the intense human activity that once defined the space. Visitors leave with a profound sense of history made palpable, a connection to the lives and energies that remain interwoven with the stone and wood of Presidio La. The poltergeist's presence is a haunting that transcends fear. It is a living echo of history, a spirit bound to its former environment, expressing itself through movement, sound, and energy. It reminds those who enter that the fort is not just a collection of walls and artifacts. It is a repository of human experience, of toil, care, conflict, and emotion. Chairs that topple, plates that shatter, and silverware that moves on its own are not merely curiosities. They are whispers from the past, compelling visitors to acknowledge that some spirits, like history itself, refuse to be silent. The ramparts of Presidio, LA stretching along the fort's perimeter, were designed to offer soldiers a clear view of approaching threats, to defend the walls, and to serve as a bastion of security in turbulent times. Today, they are quiet, scenic walkways for visitors, offering panoramic views of the surrounding landscape. Yet, when the wind blows, especially on dark, deserted nights, the ramparts become a conduit for something far more unsettling than the mere sound of gusting air. The whispering winds of the ramparts carry voices soft, urgent, and haunting echoes of the fort, as turbulent past that seem to warn intruders to leave or risk suffering the same fate as those who perished centuries ago. The phenomenon is first noticed as a gentle rustle of air, almost indistinguishable from the natural wind weaving through the stone battlements. But as the breeze intensifies, the sounds become unmistakably human. Visitors often hear soft murmurs, the faint syllables of words carried across the walls, sometimes forming phrases like "go back," "leave now," or "danger." The whispering is not continuous, but sporadic, as if the voices are aware of who is present, choosing moments to speak when the listener is most vulnerable, heightening both tension and fear. Eyewitnesses consistently describe the voices as urgent but melancholic, imbued with the weight of tragedy. They are not angry shouts or violent commands. Rather, they are the remnants of warnings, last words, and cries of soldiers who once patrolled, fought, and died along these very walls. The tone suggests a duality of purpose. These are echoes of both protection and suffering. Spirits compelled to safeguard the fort from intrusion, while unable to move beyond the trauma of their own deaths. The historical context of the ramparts enhances the eerie experience. During the fort's active years, soldiers stationed on these walls faced constant threats, from sieges and raids to ambushes and internal conflict. Many lost their lives while defending the fort, and some are believed to have died in places now marked only by memory. The whispering winds may carry their voices precisely because the ramparts were once their domain, and their vigilance, loyalty, and fear have become embedded in the very stones, repeating across centuries whenever the conditions align. Many visitors report feeling an immediate shift in temperature and atmosphere when the whispers begin. A sudden chill often accompanies the voices, and shadows on the ramparts appear to stretch unnaturally, as though the walls themselves are alive with presence. Some describe the sensation of being watched, a subtle pressure at the nape of the neck, or the feeling of an unseen hand lightly brushing against clothing. These physical and sensory effects contribute to the sense that the ramparts are inhabited, not just by memory, but by active spirits attuned to intruders. The phenomenon is often heightened during high winds or storms, when the natural elements amplify the voices. The gusts can carry whispers farther than the human ear might normally perceive, blending the natural sound of wind with the spectral echoes of soldiers' voices. Listeners have reported hearing overlapping whispers, as though multiple spirits are communicating at once, forming a chorus of caution and warning that fills the ramparts with an otherworldly resonance. At times, the murmurs appear to follow visitors along the walls, increasing in intensity as one moves, then fading abruptly when one stops or turns to look, reinforcing the impression of intelligent, responsive spirits. Paranormal researchers have documented these auditory phenomena with audio recording devices and thermal imaging. Some recordings capture faint voices that are unintelligible when first played back, only to reveal soft syllables or phrases upon careful listening. Thermal scans occasionally detect brief anomalies along the battlements, small cold spots appearing and disappearing without logical cause. These patterns suggest that the whispers are more than imagination. They are tied to both the physical space and the residual energy of the fort's history. The local lore surrounding the ramparts emphasizes both warning and protection. Stories passed down through guides and historians describe the voices as guardians, spirits who patrol the walls in death as they did in life. They are said to speak to the living only when the fort is empty, to preserve its sanctity, and to warn those who might disrespect or trespass. Some legends even suggest that the whispers are messages, reminders of the fort's violent past, meant to teach respect for the history and lives that shaped Presidio. Despite the unsettling nature of the whispering winds, encounters are rarely described as harmful. There is no physical attack, no malice beyond the urgency of the voices. Instead, the effect is psychological, a reminder of mortality, history, and the weight of past actions. Visitors often leave the ramparts with a lingering sense of awe and reflection, contemplating the centuries of vigilance, courage, and sacrifice that these whispers represent. The ramparts, once a place of strategic defense, have become a bridge between the living and the dead, connecting the present to a time of turmoil through sound, sensation, and memory. The whispers also leave a profound emotional impact. Those who hear them report feelings of reverence, solemnity, and humility, as though the spirits are silently reminding them of the cost of conflict. It is a haunting that transcends fear, combining history, empathy, and the supernatural into a single, unforgettable experience. The voices seem to urge reflection, to remember, to respect, and to leave the fort with both knowledge and a heightened sense of connection to those who lived and died here. The whispering winds of the ramparts are more than mere auditory phenomena. They are echoes of loyalty, guardianship, and memory, carried across centuries by the stone walls of Presidio. They remind visitors that the fort is not merely a historical structure, It is a living repository of human experience, where the voices of the past continue to speak, warn, and resonate. For those who walk the ramparts on a windy night, the voices are a haunting yet poetic testament to the fort's enduring spirit, ensuring that the lessons and sacrifices of history are never forgotten. The watchtower of Presidio rises above the fort like a sentinel, offering a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape. It is a structure designed for vigilance, a place where soldiers once scanned the horizon for approaching enemies, signaling danger to the garrison below. Today, the tower is mostly silent, used for observation and photography by visitors. Yet it is far from empty. For those who venture up the narrow stairway late in the day or on quiet evenings, a chilling presence awaits, a dark figure, a shadowy sentinel, who watches from the tower and vanishes when approached, leaving behind an intense sense of being observed. Eyewitnesses describe the figure as tall and indistinct, a human shape rendered entirely in shadow, with no discernible features. Some see the outline of a soldier's uniform, others only a silhouette against the fading light. It appears without warning, standing motionless at the edge of the tower, or leaning slightly over the railing, as if scanning the terrain for intruders or threats. Its presence is immediate and overpowering, often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature, a heavy stillness in the air, and the subtle sensation of eyes boring into the soul of the observer. The sightings often begin with a feeling of being watched, a subtle awareness that grows stronger as one climbs the tower. Visitors report hairs standing on the back of their necks, goosebumps forming across their arms, and an almost magnetic pull toward the top. When they reach the platform and finally see the figure, it is described as completely silent, yet commanding. The shadow does not move aggressively, but its gaze, though featureless, is intensely felt, as if assessing intentions, measuring respect, and warning against missteps. Many encounters end in the same way. As observers step closer, perhaps to speak or take a photograph, the shadow evaporates. There is no sound of footsteps, no movement through the air, only an abrupt absence, where the figure had been, replaced by a sudden emptiness and a lingering chill. Witnesses describe the sensation of being left behind under watchful eyes, a haunting feeling of vulnerability and awe, as though they were intruding upon a sacred, guarded space. The historical context of the watchtower helps explain the persistence of such a haunting. Soldiers stationed in the tower had critical responsibilities. Their role demanded constant vigilance, especially during attacks or night watches. Records indicate that some guards died in the line of duty, falling victim to skirmishes, accidents, or disease. The tower, with its narrow stairs, high vantage point, and exposure to the elements, was a place of stress and isolation. Many historians and paranormal enthusiasts speculate that the shadow in the watchtower is the residual energy of a soldier who cannot leave his post, eternally vigilant and bound to the tower where he once kept watch. The effect on visitors is both psychological and sensory. Beyond the visual sighting, there are reports of subtle changes in the environment. Cold drafts swirled unexpectedly around the platform. The hairs on the arms and neck stand on end, and the silence is occasionally punctuated by faint creaks of the wooden floorboards, though no one is present to make them. Some describe an almost tangible pressure, as if the shadow exerts a weight or force that is perceptible despite its ethereal form. These sensations reinforce the sense that the tower is inhabited by more than memory alone. Paranormal researchers investigating the tower have noted unusual energy readings during sightings. Thermal imaging sometimes reveals an abrupt cold spot where the figure appears, while electromagnetic field detectors spike inexplicably, suggesting a localized energy disturbance. Audio recordings occasionally capture faint murmurs or static-like whispers, though the tower is otherwise silent. These readings, while not definitive proof of a conscious entity, indicate that there is a measurable anomaly coinciding with the appearance of the shadow. Local lore supports the notion of the watchtower as a place of supernatural guardianship. Stories passed down through guides and historians describe the shadow as both a sentinel and a warning. Some say it watches for the living with the same vigilance it once maintained over enemies of the fort. ensuring that the fort's legacy remains respected. Others believe the figure appears to those who enter with disrespect or disregard for the site, vanishing once it is satisfied that the observer understands the weight of history and duty embedded in the tower. The shadow in the watchtower is unique among the hauntings of Presidio, LA, in that it embodies presence without malice. It is not a poltergeist or a vengeful spirit. It does not move objects, cry out, or lash out at visitors. Instead, it exists as a sentinel, an echo of duty and vigilance preserved through time. Witnesses often leave the tower feeling both unsettled and reverent, a mixture of fear, awe, and respect for the discipline and sacrifice the shadow represents. Interestingly, some visitors report a fleeting sense of communication during encounters. A tilt of the head, a lingering stare, or a subtle shift in the shadow's posture is interpreted as acknowledgement and unspoken message that the watcher is aware of their presence. Though intangible, these impressions leave a lasting impact, transforming a simple visit into an encounter with history made alive through spectral form. The haunting of the watchtower reminds us that Presidio La is more than a historical site. It is a living record of human experience, a place where duty, fear, and sacrifice resonate through centuries. The shadow in the watchtower embodies that resonance, a guardian, an observer, a silent echo of the past that continues to watch over the fort. Its sudden vanishing reinforces the ephemeral nature of ghosts, leaving visitors with lingering questions, a chilling sense of awareness, and an unforgettable impression of the fort's enduring spirit. The shadow in the watchtower is a spectral sentinel, a figure of vigilance and history intertwined, reminding all who climb the tower that the past is never truly gone. Even when unseen, it is always watching, a silent witness to the stories and sacrifices that shaped Presidio. Within the grounds of Presidio La, near the center of the fort, lies a stone wella, utilitarian structure that once provided water for soldiers, officers, and residents alike. Its stones are worn smooth from centuries of use, moss clinging to the edges, water dark and still within its depths. Today, it is a quiet feature of the fort, visited mostly by tourists who pause to admire its history and imagine the lives that once depended on it. Yet, long after the fort's daily bustle has faded, a presence lingers, here a spectral soldier, eternally drawn to the well, endlessly repeating the act of lowering a bucket in search of water. Witnesses describe the soldier as a figure dressed in period uniform, his coat faded to ghostly gray, buttons glinting faintly in the moonlight. His posture is precise, disciplined, yet weary, a testament to the hardships endured during the fort's active years. Visitors often spot him leaning over the edge of the well, lowering an invisible bucket or peering into the darkness below. There is no sound of the bucket striking water, no splash or echo, only the faintest movement, a repetition of motion so precise and mechanical that it seems almost ritualistic. The haunting is subtle at first. A visitor may glance toward the well, thinking they see a shadow or a trick of light, only to realize that the soldier is distinctly present, acting as if unaware of their gaze. Those who observe for longer periods notice that the figure repeats the same sequence, lowering the bucket, raising it, peering into the dark water, and adjusting his stance. He does this endlessly, a loop that feels both hypnotic and tragic, as though bound to the well by duty or circumstance, unable to move beyond this one act. Many who encounter the soldier at the well report a sense of melancholy. There is no threat or aggression in his presence, only the weight of unfulfilled purpose and lingering attachment. Some describe an emotional pull, a feeling of empathy for the figure, as if they are witnessing the eternal echo of exhaustion, thirst, and responsibility. Others feel an inexplicable heaviness, a subtle pressure in the air near the well, coinciding with a drop in temperature. These sensations reinforce the impression that the soldier is tethered to both place and action, trapped by the events of a bygone era. Historical context provides possible explanations for the haunting. Wells were critical to the survival of the fort's inhabitants, particularly during times of siege or drought. Soldiers were tasked with drawing water, not only for drinking, but also for cooking, cleaning, and maintaining sanitation. Many endured grueling shifts at the well, working long hours under extreme conditions. It is believed that some soldiers may have perished while carrying out these duties, and their dedication, with the trauma of untimely death, left an energetic imprint that manifests today as the ghostly figure of the soldier endlessly fetching water. Eyewitnesses consistently report the figure appearing during twilight or after dark, though daytime sightings are occasionally noted. The dim light of early evening seems to enhance the spectral effect, casting long shadows that merge with the soldier's form, blurring the line between physical presence and apparition. Some visitors notice a faint shimmer or distortion in the air around him, a subtle ripple that suggests the figure is not entirely corporeal. Others sense the faint metallic scent of a uniform or the dryness of stone and dust, olfactory echoes that add to the haunting's realism. Paranormal investigators have attempted to document the soldier at the well using both audio and visual equipment. Cameras sometimes capture a faint, translucent figure leaning over the well, while infrared sensors detect sudden cold spots in the immediate vicinity. Audio recordings occasionally pick up subtle scraping or metallic sounds, which may correspond to the motion of the soldier's bucket or uniform. These anomalies, though difficult to interpret definitively, lend credibility to reports of the haunting and suggest that the soldier is more than mere legend. There is also a psychological dimension to the encounter. Observers often feel compelled to look away, as if prolonged scrutiny might disturb the soldier or reveal a truth too stark to comprehend. Others find themselves drawn into the repetition, imagining the weight of the bucket, the strain of bending over stone, and the monotony of endless duty. The haunting functions on multiple levels. It is visual, sensory, and emotional, connecting the living to the trials of a past existence in a deeply visceral way. Local lore has amplified the story over generations. Guides and historians recount that the soldier is bound to the well, not merely by death, but by his devotion and obligation. Some claim that he is searching for water that will never be filled, a metaphor for unfinished duty or the futility of effort in the face of tragedy. Others suggest that he serves as a silent guardian, a spectral sentinel ensuring that visitors respect the fort and the sacrifices embedded in its walls. Despite the eerie nature of the encounter, the soldier at the well is not malevolent. There is no aggression, no attempt to harm those who observe him. Instead, the haunting is a form of historical resonance, a living memory that allows visitors to glimpse the experiences of soldiers who labored, suffered, and sometimes died in service to their post. It is a haunting that evokes empathy, reflection, and a profound awareness of the human dimension of Presidio, LA's history. For those who witnessed a soldier at the well, the experience is unforgettable. The repeated motion, the silence, the cold, and the presence all combine to create a moment suspended in time. It is as though the well has become a bridge between past and present, linking the living to the dedication, hardship, and unresolved energy of a soldier who cannot leave his post. The soldier at the well is a reminder that history is not merely recorded in documents or etched in stone. It lives in the spaces, the motions, and the echoes of those who once inhabited them. His ceaseless vigilance, repeated act, and silent watch over the well transform a simple architectural feature into a haunting testament to duty, endurance, and the enduring presence of the past. Even as the living move away, the soldier continues, bending over the dark water, lowering the bucket, peering into the depths, trapped in a cycle of devotion that time cannot break. The well is never empty to him. It is a stage for the repetition of history, a haunting reminder that some spirits are bound not by chains but by purpose, endlessly seeking, endlessly watching, and eternally unable to rest. Within the stone barracks of Presidio, the long corridors and narrow doorways bear silent witness to centuries of history, both proud and tragic. The walls, once filled with the chatter of soldiers and the clatter of daily life, now echo with something far more sorrowful. Among the many spirits said to haunt the fort, none is as heartrending as the mourning widower, spectral woman who roams the barracks, calling for her husband, her cries carrying through the stone corridors like a melody of grief that refuses to fade. Visitors often notice the first signs of her presence subtly, almost imperceptibly. A chill drifts through a hallway where the air should be still. The faint scent of lavender or old perfume wafts past, though no living person is near. And then comes the sound, a low, plaintive wail, soft at first, almost lost among the natural creaks of the building, but growing steadily in volume and despair. Those who follow the sound report seeing her, a woman in period clothing, a long flowing dress, faded with age. Her hair loose and tangled, her face pale and strained with sorrow. She moved slowly, deliberately, gliding across the stone floors as if weightless, her eyes scanning each doorway, each room, as though searching for a man long gone. The mourning widow's cries are both haunting and hypnotic. Unlike a scream born of anger or terror, her voice carries the unmistakable cadence of grief. "Where are you?" she whispers, then wails, then calls again, her words repeating in a cycle of longing and despair. She does not threaten, she does not curse. Her presence is purely emotional, a manifestation of love, loss, and the inability to let go. Yet the effect on those who hear her is profound. Visitors often feel their own hearts quicken, an ache of empathy settling into their chest, as though the sorrow is contagious. Historical accounts provide a chilling context for her haunting. During the fort's most violent sieges, many men were stationed in these barracks, leaving behind wives or sweethearts who awaited their safe return. Some of these women arrived at the fort to find their loved ones already dead, victims of battle, disease, or execution. The mourning widow is said to be one such woman, left behind by circumstance, doomed to wander the halls, searching for the husband she could not save or accompany into death. Her grief is bound to the barracks, trapped in the stone, echoing through the corridors, with the memory of her loss. Those who have encountered her describe the physical sensations accompanying her appearance as chilling. A sudden drop in temperature often precedes her arrival, frost seeming to settle on the floor or walls despite the season. Shadows stretch unnaturally, and light flickers from windows or lanterns, casting her form into sharp relief. Some visitors report the sensation of being lightly brushed by air, as if her passing displaces a tangible presence, though nothing is visible to the eye. Others feel a subtle weight in the space around them, a pressure that seems to draw attention toward her wandering path. The mourning widow's routine is consistent. She walks the corridors, occasionally pausing at a doorway or leaning over an empty cot, her hands clasped as if holding something precious. At times, she seems to whisper directly to someone, though no words can be clearly heard. The repetition of her movements reinforces the idea that she is trapped in time, reliving the moment of loss over and over, compelled by a force beyond comprehension. She searches, she calls, she grieves, but she never leaves. Paranormal investigators have captured several anomalies in her presence. Audio devices occasionally pick up faint voices, sometimes indistinct words resembling calling or pleading. Infrared cameras detect sudden cold spots moving along the corridors, and motion sensors sometimes register brief disturbances when no one is present. Photographs occasionally show faint, flowing shapes at the edges of doorways, consistent with eyewitness descriptions of her ethereal form. These recordings lend credibility to her legend, suggesting that her grief is not only emotional, but also manifests as tangible energy within the fort. The legend of the mourning widow also serves as a cautionary tale and a reminder of the fort's history. Her wandering is not meant to frighten maliciously. Rather, it embodies the consequences of war, separation, and untimely death. Guides often recount her story with reverence, explaining that her sorrow is a connection to the humanity of the past, a reflection of love and loss that transcends centuries. Those who encounter her are reminded that the fort was not only a site of strategy and defense, but also a place of intense personal tragedy, where human emotion was as palpable as stone and timber. Despite the haunting's emotional weight, some visitors report feeling comforted by her presence. There is a sense of continuity, of history living through emotion. and a profound reminder that love can endure beyond the boundaries of life. Witnesses often leave the barracks with a mixture of sadness and awe, their minds lingering on her figure, her cries, and the silent story of devotion she embodies. The mourning widow is a haunting unlike any other at Presidio. La, she does not strike fear with aggression or terror. She moves through the corridors with purpose born of love and grief. Her presence, a living memory of the personal cost of conflict. She is the echo of devotion, the shadow of sorrow, the eternal search for what was lost. Those who hear her calls, who see her gliding through the stone halls, cannot help but feel the weight of history made flesher, rather spirit-tanned, the enduring resonance of a love that even death cannot sever. Her cries continue through the stone corridors, night after night, century after century. She is bound to the barracks, to the fort, to the memory of her husband, repeating her search for eternity. The mourning widow is a spectral reminder that behind every battle, every siege, and every historical record, there were human hearts and human sorrows, stories that continue to walk among us, whispering their pain and their devotion through the walls of Presidio. At Presidio La Bahia, the night transforms the fort into a realm of shadows and whispers, a place where history feels alive in ways that defy explanation. One of the most unsettling phenomena reported by visitors and night guards alike is the phantom firelight. Along the stone walls, often near the corners of corridors or the edges of courtyards, unexplained flames appear without source, casting flickering light and eerie shadows that seem to move with a life of their own. These flames are not the product of candles, torches, or modern lighting. They are spectral, ephemeral, and tied to the tragedies that unfolded within the fort centuries ago. Eyewitnesses describe the firelight as small, orange and yellow flames, dancing in midair, never burning anything they touch. At first, they appear like distant lanterns, illuminating narrow sections of walls or stairways. But as one approaches, the flames intensify, their flicker casting long, distorted shadows across the stones. These shadows often take the shape of human figures, soldiers, officers, or civilians, moving as though alive. When touched or approached, both the flame and the figure vanish instantly, leaving the observer in near total darkness, accompanied only by the lingering warmth of a presence that was never corporeal. The effect is both mesmerizing and terrifying. The shadows are detailed enough that witnesses can see uniforms, hats, or flowing dresses, each figure frozen in mid-motion, as if caught in the act of daily life centuries ago. A soldier may appear to be loading a musket, an officer gesturing to troops, or a civilian bending over to carry supplies. The flames seem to highlight these moments, illuminating scenes of ordinary existence and extraordinary tragedy. Visitors often report a feeling of standing on the edge of history itself, witnessing fragments of life that have persisted beyond death. The historical context of the phantom firelight lends chilling weight to its presence. Presidio La was the site of numerous sieges, battles, and tragic deaths. Soldiers died defending the fort, prisoners were executed, and families witnessed unimaginable suffering. The fires may symbolize the lives lost and the chaos that once filled the fort. Some historians suggest that the flames are residual energy from the past, a visual echo of destruction, fear, and sudden death. Others believe the light is more purposeful, a supernatural attempt to reenact the fort's history for those who remain living. Those who experience the phenomenon often describe a progression in intensity. The first flickers may be small and distant, a hint of light along a wall or archway. As the observer moves closer, the flames brighten and the shadows become more distinct, almost tangible. Yet the closer one gets, the more they elude capture. Some report reaching out to touch a shadow, only for it to dissolve instantly, leaving the corridor empty and the mind racing to comprehend what was seen. It is as if the firelight and its accompanying figures exist for observation, but cannot be interacted with, a haunting that teases both curiosity and dread. Sensory effects often accompany the phantom firelight. A sudden warmth may appear near the flame, a slight crackle of unseen fire may be heard, or the faint scent of smoke lingers in the air. Though no flame or embers exist, The combination of visual, auditory, and olfactory stimuli makes the encounter profoundly immersive. Visitors frequently describe a tingling on the skin, a pressure in the chest, or an overwhelming sense of being watched by those illuminated by the spectral flames. Paranormal investigators have documented the phenomenon using night vision cameras, thermal imaging, and audio recorders. Footage occasionally captures faint, flickering light where no source exists, while infrared devices detect sudden heat anomalies coinciding with the appearance of the flames. Some audio recordings pick up faint crackling or whispers, aligning with the movement of the shadows. While the phenomenon is difficult to reproduce consistently, these measurements suggest that the phantom firelight is a tangible, albeit mysterious, presence within the fort. Local lore surrounding the flames often emphasizes the tragic and unfulfilled narratives of the fort's past. Stories tell of soldiers who fell defending the walls, of officers and prisoners caught in sudden death, and of families witnessing the horror of war. The flames are said to appear at night to remind the living of these events, casting light on moments that were lost in time. The shadows they produce are interpreted as the souls of those who cannot rest, eternally replaying the actions, fears, and duties that defined their lives. Visitors report that the phantom firelight evokes a mix of awe and fear. It is not a malevolent haunting in the traditional sense. The figures do not attack or threaten, yet there is a profound emotional intensity, a sense of stepping into a world where life and death are intertwined, where the past is rendered visible in fleeting glimpses. The flames and shadows command attention, drawing observers into the fort's history in a way that is simultaneously beautiful, tragic, and haunting. The firelight seems particularly active in quiet, empty parts of the fort, away from guided tours and modern noise. The flickering shadows appear along corridors where soldiers once moved supplies, near corners where prisoners were held, and along walls overlooking the courtyards where battles and executions took place. Some visitors report that the shadows occasionally mimic the observers' movements, tilting their heads or shifting slightly, as if acknowledging the living presence in their midst. The phantom firelight is a haunting that combines visual spectacle with historical resonance. It is a reminder that Presidio LA is not just stone and mortar. It is a vessel for memory, emotion, and lingering energy. The flames and shadows offer a window into the lives of those who lived, struggled, and died within the fort, creating a haunting tableau that is as mesmerizing as it is unsettling. For those who encounter it, the phantom firelight leaves an indelible impression. The flickering flames, the dancing shadows, the sudden vanishings all create a sense of witnessing something beyond the ordinary. It is an experience that binds the present to the past, illuminating the fort's history in a literal and spectral glow. In the silence that follows the flame's disappearance, the observer is left with awe, reflection, and a deep understanding that some memories, some spirits, and some histories cannot be extinguished. They continue to burn, eternally, along the walls of Presidio. At the heart of Presidio, LA stands the chapel, a structure of simple elegance. Its whitewashed walls and arched windows reflecting centuries of devotion, tragedy, and human drama. By day, the chapel welcomes tourists and history enthusiasts who admire its architecture and imagine the rituals of the past. But as night descends, a transformation occurs. When darkness envelops the fort, the chapel becomes a stage for one of the most ethereal and chilling hauntings, the silent choir. Visitors who wander the chapel after hours, or those lucky enough to be there at the stroke of midnight, report hearing voices singing hymns. The sound is unmistakable, the delicate rise and fall of harmonized voices, the solemn beauty of songs meant to comfort, pray, or commemorate. Yet there is no living choir present. The voices emanate from empty pews, ghostly and intangible, lingering in the still air like a memory of devotion that refuses to fade. The haunting is subtle at first. Some hear faint murmurs, as though the choir is practicing far away, voices blending into one another. Then, as midnight approaches, the sound grows clearer and more structured. Hymns once familiar are rendered with a purity and resonance that transcends modern understanding. Observers often feel compelled to stop, to listen, caught in the gravity of voices that seem both near and impossibly distant. The music is calming and sorrowful at once, evoking feelings of reverence, awe, and an inexplicable melancholy. Eyewitnesses describe the phenomenon as while the singing is the most prominent aspect, there are accompanying subtleties. The faint scent of incense wafts through the chapel, the flicker of candlelight along the walls, and the soft echo of footsteps on the stone floor, though no one is physically present. Some claim to see the vague outlines of figures at the edges of vision, men and women in period clothing, appearing to kneel or sway with the rhythm of the hymns. Yet these shapes dissolve when observed directly, leaving only the music to linger in the air. The historical context of the chapel makes the haunting particularly poignant. During the fort's active years, the chapel was a place of solace for soldiers, families, and clergy. It was here that last rites were administered, prayers offered for the dying and the dead, and funerals conducted for those who had fallen during the fort's many sieges. Many of those who worshipped within these walls died violent or untimely deaths, their devotion interrupted by conflict. Paranormal enthusiasts speculate that the silent choir is the echo of those prayers and hymns, a residual energy left behind by the faithful whose lives ended too soon. Encounters with the silent choir are not merely auditory. Witnesses often experience a profound sense of presence, a feeling of being surrounded by something greater than themselves. Some describe a tingling along the spine, a sudden drop in temperature, or the sensation of being lightly touched by unseen hands. Others report a comforting embrace, as though the spirits intend no harm, but are instead enacting the rituals they once performed, enveloping visitors in a moment suspended between past and present. Paranormal investigators have recorded unusual phenomena corresponding with sightings and sounds. Audio equipment sometimes picks up harmonics that match the human voice, but cannot be explained by any living singer. Thermal imaging occasionally detects cold spots along the pews and altar, while EMF detectors register spikes in areas where the voices are most prominent. These findings suggest that the chapel's haunting is not purely psychological, but may involve tangible energy echoes, remnants of devotion preserved across centuries. The haunting is also notable for its consistency. Reports indicate that the singing often occurs around midnight, sometimes on the anniversary of historical events such as battles, sieges, or deaths of prominent figures connected to the fort. Guides and historians have compiled accounts from different generations, finding remarkable similarity in descriptions. The tone, the tempo, and the emotional resonance of the voices remain largely unchanged, as if the chapel itself has become a vessel for a timeless choir, repeating the hymns of the past for all who will listen. The silent choir differs from other hauntings at Presidio, LA, in its nature and intent. There is no aggression, no visible threat, and no apparent desire to frighten visitors. Instead, the experience is one of reflection and connection. Witnesses frequently describe leaving the chapel with a sense of awe and introspection, moved by the depth of devotion and loss that lingers in the air. Some even report feeling inspired or spiritually uplifted, as though the voices themselves are bridging the centuries, linking the living with those who have long since passed. Local legend holds that the choir may be composed of the fort's clergy, soldiers, and families who once attended services. Some say they are trapped in the chapel, unable to leave until their final prayers are fully heard. Others believe the music is a form of guardianship, an ongoing act of reverence that preserves the sanctity of the fort and reminds visitors of its historical and spiritual significance. Regardless of interpretation, the silent choir continues to capture the imagination and emotions of those who encounter it. For those who hear it, the haunting leaves an indelible impression. The voices echo through time, a testament to the faith, sorrow, and devotion that defined life at Presidio. It is a haunting that transcends fear, blending beauty, tragedy, and history into a moment that is unforgettable. Visitors leave the chapel carrying the memory of a choir that sings without bodhi, a haunting reminder that the past is never truly silent. The silent choir is more than a ghost story. It is the living resonance of history, preserved in sound and spirit. At midnight, the chapel becomes a vessel for memory, devotion, and lingering presence, and those who witness it are forever changed. The echoes of hymns, the ghostly figures, and the palpable emotion ensure that Presidio La remains a place where the past sings, unbroken and eternal. Presidio La stands today as both a monument and a mystery. Its walls remember what we often try to forget: the courage, the tragedy, and the countless lives that ended too soon. Perhaps these spirits linger not to frighten, but to remind us of the weight of history and the human stories that shaped it. As you leave these stories behind, remember the whispers, the shadows, and the echoes. Listen closely, for if you ever walk these grounds at night, you may feel the presence of the past brushing against you, guiding you gently, or simply reminding you that memory, like spirit, never truly dies. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the Presidio teaches us that history has a heartbeat, and sometimes that heartbeat can be heard if we quiet our minds and open our ears. So tread lightly, remember those who came before, and let their stories linger in your imagination long after the lights go out.